This meeting is being recorded.
Stand by till we get Reggie's. Okay.
Good morning, Madam President. We are recording.
Good morning. Welcome to the regular meeting of the Board of Water and Power Commissioners. Today is Tuesday, March 8, 2022. This proceeding is broadcast on Channel 35. The exact broadcast times can be found by contacting Channel 35. General Counsel.
Good morning. In conformity with California Assembly Bill AB 361 and due to public health concerns and directives issued by the Mayor of Los Angeles and the Los Angeles County Health Department regarding reducing the spread of COVID-19, this meeting for the Board of Water and Power Commissioners will be conducted with some commissioners appearing virtually from remote locations. All public comment will be taken telephonically. We may announce a recess if we have difficulties or lose a quorum. Members of the public wanting to offer public comment can do so by calling 213-306-3065. Again, that number is 213-306-3065. When prompted, please enter meeting code 2491-419-5147. Again, that code is 2491-419-5147. The board secretary will call on you when it is your turn to speak. Please state whether you are speaking on a specific agenda item or on general public comment. You will have up to 2 minutes per item and a total of 5 minutes for all items you're speaking on. If you are watching on a computer, please turn down your speakers so that we don't have feedback. The acting board secretary will now take the commission roll.
Thank you. President McCLAIN-HILL.
Present.
Vice President Reyes.
Present.
Commissioner BARAD Hopkins.
Present.
Commissioner LEHRER.
Present.
Commissioner NEEMAN BRADY.
Present.
5 members present and a quorum. I will now turn it over to Board President McCLAIN-HILL.
Thank you, and I do have opening remarks this morning. It is March, a particularly exciting month, and March 8th, a special day for me and the more than 2,400 women at LADWP. And so on behalf of your all-female Board of Water and Power Commissioners, happy International Women's Day and happy Women's History Month. International Women's Day and Women's History Month are global periods of celebrating the achievements of women all over the world. This is a time to call, but as you all know, I'd rather say demand, accelerating gender parity and women's equality. Here at LADWP, it's an especially important time to celebrate the undeniably vital role that women play in the department's history, then and now, especially those who were or are ahead of their time, trailblazers, leaders, and those who broke and continue to break gender bias. This year's International Women's History Day theme is Break the Bias. Today, as it has been throughout history, biases, both deliberate and unconscious, have and may continue to make it difficult for women to be provided opportunity to advance in their careers and get ahead. While we've made important strides and taken steps to change this in society and here at DWP, we need to continue to break the bias. We need to consistently show our commitment to women by uplifting, supporting, and respecting them, so much so that having an all-female board is no longer unusual, that the term women in non-traditional roles becomes a misnomer, and that no one bats an eye at the sight of a female line worker or heavy-duty truck operator. Acknowledging that bias exists is not enough. There needs to be important and continuous action to level the playing field, create opportunity, and make room for women at the table. If you recall, in last year's Women's History Month celebrations, the general manager and then IBEW Local 18 business manager Brian D'Arcy and I participated in a women's empowerment panel featuring women in different classifications in the department who shared their successes, challenges at work and at home, and different ways that they navigated their civil service career. In that same event, Marty and I asked the panel, predominantly female, and the predominantly female participants, to tell us what they needed to feel better supported at work. The chat box lit up. And with some content analysis following the event and a women's survey in June, we identified 3 main areas of concern for LADWP women: work-life balance, career development, and workplace conditions. In response to these, we have since formed the LADWP's Women's Council, where committees will be formed to tackle these issues and come up with fixes to bring forth to management. This is about making our women's voices heard, taking a seat at the table, and advocating for what matters to the women of LADWP. And we will continue to do that in creative ways. For this month, the Women's Council is coming out strong with a series of events for all department employees to enjoy. Just last Saturday, we had a very successful Women's Power Walk at the Hollywood Reservoir with more than 200 employees and their families who came out and walked a few miles with me, Vice President Reyes, General Manager Marty Adams, and of course, our friends at IBW. This event was co-hosted by the Women's Council and LADWP SWE and spearheaded by the Corporate Strategy and Communications Division in close coordination with our hosts, the Water System, and the Supportive Security Services. I thoroughly enjoyed the chance to see so many smiling faces in person, interact with each other, and get my steps in while appreciating one of LA's water gems. Later this week, in keeping with the celebration of Women's History at LADWP, the Corporate Strategy and Communications Division will have a virtual photo exhibit featuring the women of the department from the early years through today. On the screen is a teaser of the photos on the virtual exhibit. You'll see photos of many women breaking the bias throughout the years, installing cables and water meters, being the first female system plant operator, first female engineer, first female IT manager, and more. It shows the evolution of women's roles from phone operators, home economist, or home economic, I can't even say the word, sorry. Administrators to leaders in various practices. I think there actually were home economists. Yeah. Please watch out for this via department email, and we will also share widely on our LADWP social channels for our customers to enjoy. Lastly, but not least, we will have a women's panel on March 29th entitled Breaking the Bias, Then and Now. We're inviting back some of our retired women alongside current female employees, all of whom worked and continue to work to break the bias. We're looking forward to hearing about their interesting stories, and we'll share more information about that event in the coming weeks. Now I'd like to share with you a video. This was produced by our talented corporate strategy and communications team, and it highlights and celebrates the women of LADWP who have continued to build a stronger Los Angeles. We stand with them because we are LADWP. Steve?
We are building a stronger Los Angeles
through service, innovation, and opportunity.
We are LADWP.
We are LADWP.
We are LADWP.
Before concluding my remarks, I'd like to extend. Oops. Okay. Okay. I'd like to extend a special thank you to the Women's Council members, Lily Cavalche, Sean McLeod, Alicia Dickerson, Fabiola Moreno, Erica Jamarillo, and LaTanya Bogan, without whom sort of fierce determination to move these matters forward, we would not be where we are today. I'd also like to say thank you to Leah Mulat, the president of SWE, and as always, a shout out to Evelyn Cortez Davis, who represented the water system at the Reservoir in Hollywood this past Saturday. And finally, as we talk about International Women's Day, I feel like I would be remiss in not acknowledging the courageous women of Ukraine. All of our screens are being filled with images of not just men, but women who are making a valiant stand for democracy and freedom and for the sanctity of their land. When you talk about what it means to be a woman in this world, and the fact that women do in fact hold up half the sky, there's absolutely nothing and no part of life that women cannot tackle, that women cannot be competitive in, and that women will not step up to. This department is a wonderful place, and like all of you, I love it. But I have to tell you that when I look around the world and I see the sacrifices, the challenges, the strength, the courage, the commitment of women, I am simply unimpressed with any barrier that is raised to women's full participation in the work of this department, in every job classification, in every aspect of it. So with that, I'm going to say Happy International Women's Day, and thank you all for helping to pull together this presentation. Are there any comments by any member of the board?
I just want to add as well, Happy International Women's Day, and that this event is not a country or a group or an organization. It belongs to all groups, collectively everywhere. And the story of the women's struggle for equality belongs to no single feminist, nor to any one organization, but we do stand out, LADWP, for calling it out and lifting up the voices of our women employees. But we have to work, as Commissioner Preston said, it's a collective effort of all who care about human rights. So let's make International Women's Day and do what you can to truly make a positive difference for women. So thank you.
Seeing no other comments at this time, we will move to general public comment.
Yes, we have two speakers in the queue. The first speaker will be Allison Weber.
Hello, my name is Allison Weber, and I'm here today as an organizer for the Keep Long Valley Green Coalition, which was formed in response to the dewatering of Long and Little Round Valleys in the Eastern Sierra. I'm here once again to reiterate our ask. The Los Angeles Department of Water and Power to provide a binding agreement for yearly water supply based on that year's snowpack for Long Valley and Little Round Valley. LADWP's chief duty is to its LA ratepayers, and we acknowledge that. However, as large landowners and prominent employers in Eastern Sierra, LADWP is also a large part of the Eastern Sierra community. It is time that LADWP actively seek to work with community members so that we can all come to mutually beneficial solutions regarding the land and water we must steward. It is not enough to drag your feet to community solutions when court-ordered to work on mitigation projects or provide environmental impact reports. We know that LADWP wants to be a utility service for the future. We know that you, commissioners, are striving for a more sustainable resource use and more rugged community involvement. We ask that you show us these efforts in the Eastern Sierra by working with community groups such as Keep Long Valley Green to address issues and find common solutions. We believe that there is great strength in community and that our own coalition is proof that diverse stakeholders can come together to despite differences in backgrounds or goals. When we work together, we can achieve a more equitable future. We ask that LADWP work with us as one of these stakeholders and actively seek to engage community groups in the issues that affect their homes. Stop ignoring the voices of your neighbors. When we listen and have open conversation, we can take the first step toward a healthier Eastern Sierra and a prosperous Los Angeles. Thank you.
Thank you. The next caller with area code 323 and last two digits 23. Please state your name and the item you'll be speaking on.
Hi, my name is Rafi Oxtad. I'm going to be speaking on a rent property that we have from the DWP. So we are renting a property in Hollywood in 1637 North Coalinga Boulevard, and we're requesting a waiver from rent just because our family and our property and business was impacted negatively from COVID. From March 2020 to June 2021. We are the business owners of that location, and we've been loyal customers since 2004. We always paid our rent on time and just have had successful business at the location until the coronavirus negatively impacted all of us. Pretty much we were in a state of shutdown just as everyone else was, and we had to shut down our business and had no source of income during that time. And we, the whole economy was pretty much shut down with business, tourism, and everything around that. So we just had no way of, generating any income from that. So we did suffer tremendous loss, and we were looking at any government programs that were available to us. And we just haven't found anything so far to help us with that. And because of the mandatory lockdown, we weren't able to do anything, and we were requested to pay rent for those months while our business was inoperable, and we're requesting if we can get a waiver of that. Or hopefully the Board of Commissioners can consider that for us. Just because we've been loyal this whole entire time. Again, we're always paying our rent on time. And, if there's any programs that you do find for us, anything that we can get from the state or the government, we will definitely forward that to you guys as part of the rent payment. But as far as during that tenure of, March 2020 and June 2021, it was just really tough for us. And we're pleading again if we can get that waived. And I can forward another email to each of the commissioners with a letter just restating that. So I hope you guys can consider that. Thank you so much.
Okay. Caller, are you still there?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Would you please call our commission office line? It's area code 213-367-1356. And we will make sure to get your information to the proper management.
You said 213-367-1356?
Correct.
Beautiful. Thank you so much.
Thank you. That will, we have one more public comment with the area code 213, last two digits 05. Please state your name and the item you'll be speaking on. Okay, that will now close all public comment. Thank you.
Thank you, and we'll now go to our general manager.
Thank you very much. It's great to see everybody here today in person. So
close.
We're getting closer. We're getting there. So I know I know we all enjoy being together and being with at least two of our commissioners, and hope soon we'll all be able to get together with the whole crowd. First of all, I want to join the commission president in wishing all of the female employees of LA Water and Power a happy International Women's Day and a very special Women's History Month. I had the privilege of joining everyone on Saturday at the Hollywood Reservoir Walk. It was a great event. Joe Romano and I talked about the fact that we had done reservoir walks open to the public in the past and some of our other facilities, and how it was a great opportunity to not only showcase some of our areas that people don't get to see, but tell our story. And so we're looking at reviving that for both employees and the community at large. And I think it's a great opportunity. And so this idea that came from the Women's Council and SWE and working with Local 18 and our public affairs group, I think is something that can take a toehold and really expand and be great for us. In my career, interestingly, probably about a third of my career, I had female engineers as my supervisors. And so in my area, I was fortunate to not see the kind of struggles that a lot of women have had in the department in terms of opportunity. But I recognize that in so many areas where women are trying to take on non-traditional roles and the challenges of fitting into a work area that maybe has traditionally been occupied by men, or just trying to lead all aspects of their life and find that very special and important balance of balancing work and family and career and the education that so many folks have worked so hard to get, and how to leverage all those and seek opportunities. I think now is the time, and we have a tremendous effort moving forward. I think not only with the board because of its makeup, but also we have a senior management team that's very in tune with these issues and very committed. And I'm really looking forward to the year ahead. I think this could be not only a Women's History Month, but maybe this is a Women Make History Year moving ahead, and see some great strides in the department and making more programs and career paths available. And at the same time, in one of our last meetings of the Women in Non-Traditional Roles group, we talked about some of the challenges and things that the department had done in the past to make it a more family-friendly environment, and things to support all of our employees that both actually men and women took advantage of to really have a good work-life balance and help everyone to be, very productive and happy and prosperous employees. And so we want to look to those things again and see what we can recreate here at the department to really move us forward as an employer of the future and someone who's innovative and trying to find new approaches. So this is a great opportunity, and I thank the board for the leadership on this issue. I think it's the raising the awareness is the first important thing, and I think that there's a lot of opportunities. I'm looking for some great movement ahead. So thank you. We had a very good week these last couple of weeks of the department. Not just the successful Rocket Hollow Reservoir with so many of our employees, but also last Wednesday we had a very successful press conference. President McCLAIN-HILL and I accompanied the Council President Martinez and President Pro Tem O'Farrell, as well as Mayor Eric Garcetti, in announcing our debt relief programs. This included the money from the state of California to pay down debt that people had gotten into arrears in their water and power bills. Those are residential customers, where we actually have already put about $275 million of bill credits to over 250,000 customers. And we also talked about other programs that we rolled out, both the $15 million that the board previously authorized to help low-income customers on the shoulder months outside of where the money from the state covered, but also improvements to our other programs, which is bill repayment and other programs that are available to our customers to really help them get back on their feet. And so we're very happy. In all, we'll be pushing out over $300 million, as well as providing avenues to help our customers that we have not had available before. We have a big campaign going on. I know we got a lot of play in the press all day long that day, and I think it was in partnership with our community-based organizations that have worked very hard both to bring this issue to us and also to help us get the word out. I think we're helping more people than ever before. One of the evidences of that is in our Easy Save program, where since we've been tracking it starting in early 2019, we reached the highest number of people enrolled, over 130,000 customers enrolled in the Easy Save program. That's the reformatting of our low-income customer discount program. And so we're very happy with continued success. Every week we have more and more people enrolling in that. On Saturday, President McCLAIN-HILL and Vice President Reyes also kicked off the 30th annual Science Bowl, something that the department has sponsored for 3 decades. It was an all-day event. I think your kickoff was about 8 or 8:30 in the morning, and I closed it out around 4:30 that afternoon. And so it was a long day. I want to thank the department volunteers who worked so hard on that. We had a number of teams competing. North Hollywood High, no stranger to the podium, was the winner at the end of the day, and they'll go on to compete regionally and then probably nationally based on their track record for the Science Bowl. So winning team members all receive a scholarship, $1,000 each from Hitachi, and the school receives a $3,000 grant for their science department. And so this team will go on to compete against 63 other teams working toward the national championship, and that's teams throughout the United States as well as District of Columbia and Puerto Rico. So it's a big deal. It's the biggest Science Bowl, the biggest thing sponsored by a federal agency, and we've been a large part of it. We've had over 325,000 students go through this program since its inception. So I want to thank again all of our volunteers who worked on that. We also had our 4th job fair in the Owens Valley. It was a virtual job fair, trying to attract folks who are interested in jobs working for the department. There's been an increasing amount of interest in becoming department employees. And with our hiring challenges, one of the challenges is always finding folks who'd like to work in some of our remote areas and people who are from those areas who'd like to stay in those areas and have a great living and a career at the department. So we did have a very good job fair, and looking to continue to make job opportunities available throughout of our service area. And lastly, I'd like to call Evelyn Cortez-Davis, sitting back there. She's going to give us a quick update on water supply, where we stand, and a couple efforts the water system is taking to make our water supplies last as much as possible.
Thank you, Marty. Good morning, Madam President, Madam Vice President, and Commissioners. I am Evelyn Cortez-Davis, Director of Water Engineering and Technical Services, and I'm speaking this morning on behalf of our Senior AGM for Water, Mr. Anselmo Collins, who is busy representing our water system at the National Water Reuse Symposium. I will have a brief water supply update for you this morning. Before that, I'd like, on behalf of the water system, to also join the board and wish everyone a happy Women's History Month and happy International Women's Day, recognizing and honoring the contributions of all the women working at LADWP and all the employees who support us in serving the city of Los Angeles every single day. It's very empowering to see our organization's efforts under this board's leadership to support all our employees, and to sit before you today, of all days, has special meaning for me. This is a very special anniversary. It was 4 years ago today, on International Women's Day in 2018, that we launched the Society of Women Engineers here at LADWP. I want to thank this board, our general manager, Marty Adams, past leaders, and our senior management throughout the organization for your vision, leadership, and support every single day since. I want to recognize our founding members, Leah Mulat, Sabi Valdez, Darlene Trong, and Eugenia Lin, for their tireless efforts to establish LADWP Suite back before employee resource groups were widely discussed in our industry. Our executive advisors, Heidi Hiraoka and Nermina Ruchich O'Neill, who is actually here in the room today, and the unending support from all of our leaders, including Reiko Kerr and Wendy Yancey. And of course, to thank every one of our over 200 SWE members who actively participate, 25% of whom are men, and representing over 30 job classifications from throughout the department, for engaging with us to support the women of the department, and together working to break the bias and to make women in non-traditional jobs a thing of the past. I have some brief remarks on water supply for all of you. After a strong start to the water year, California snowpack has fallen well below seasonal average. Most of California has had the driest January and February periods on record, with little or no precipitation in many places. Our LADWP hydrographers completed their March 1st snow surveys, and snowpack at almost all snow courses lost water content. Eastern Sierra snowpack is now at 62% of normal for April 1st, and the Department of Water Resources also conducted its March 1st snow survey at Phillips Station, which is at 68% of average for this location at this date. Statewide snowpack is at 61% of normal for this time of year and is at about 55% of the seasonal average. There's only 1 month left in California's wet season and no major storms in the forecast. So it's safe to say we'll end this year dry for a third consecutive year of dry conditions. Oroville and San Luis reservoirs are at 46 and 44% of capacity, respectively, which is well below the historic averages. In January, the Department of Water Resources announced an interim state water project allocation of 15% based on December storms. However, the latest DWR allocation study based on recent conditions indicates a possibility of a reduction to this allocation, and we're going to know more about that in the coming days. Given these record-breaking dry conditions in January and February, we are watching this very closely and we're prepared to take additional actions. We're continuing to work with MWD and other affected agencies to reduce use of state water project supplies this year. Precipitation and snowpack in the upper Colorado River Basin increased slightly last month, and precipitation right now is at 100% of normal. Snowpack is at 92% of normal, and although that sounds nice to hear, Lake Mead is at 34% of capacity. Lake Powell is at 25% of capacity, and both reservoir elevations are continuing to drop. So what are we doing about drought response now? It's important to note we are entering a third consecutive year of dry conditions and are still in a drought. It's critical for Angelenos to continue to conserve. We have increased our water conservation response unit efforts with 3 to 4 staff patrolling every day, continuing to advise customers of prohibited uses and issuing citations to repeat offenders. Prohibited uses include limiting outdoor watering to 3 days a week, no outdoor watering from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m., no outdoor watering during rain and 48 hours after, along with other wasteful uses of water. We've increased several of our water conservation incentives and rebates in response to these conditions. These were in effect as of February 23rd, and our marketing team is in the process of updating our campaign to reflect these changes. Many of our rebates are some of the highest in the region. We recently added extra dollars to help drive the market. For example, our residential customers can now obtain rebates for premium high-efficiency toilets of $250 per toilet. That was up from $150. High-efficiency clothes washers up to $500 per unit, up from $400. For a couple of examples for the commercial and multifamily customers, premium high-efficiency toilets, rebates for them are $300 per toilet, and notably, our technical assistance program, up to $2 million for qualifying projects. That was an increase from $250,000 previous limit. We're continuing to coordinate with the mayor's office in developing conditions and providing regular updates on any recommended actions. We do expect the water use in January to increase slightly due to lack of rain when compared to December of last year. So right now, our 12-month rolling average for the city for water use is 111 gallons per person per day. As a reminder, these values are a total water use number, including all water coming into the city divided by the population, and includes things like commercial and industrial uses, not just residential use. That concludes my water supply updates for now, and I'd be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you. Are there any questions? Seeing none.
Thank you, Evelyn, and that concludes my report.
Oh, terrific. I'm sorry. All right, then we will take up motions for future considerations. I'm not aware of any motions being offered by members of the board. All right, then we have item F, comments from ratepayer advocate on agendized items. Do you have any comments to offer at this time, or will you hold until we get to that part of the agenda if there are questions?
I will hold until that part of the agenda if there are questions.
Thank you, sir.
I will have comments on some of the management reports.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. In addition, we will move to, then we'll move to item G, discussion with neighborhood councils. Are there any community impact reports?
No community impact statements or formal positions were filed by any neighborhood councils on the items on today's agenda.
All right, then we are on item H. Are there items on the agenda that commissioners would like to discuss prior to taking action?
I have a question, please. It's Commissioner BARAD.
Yes, Jill, on which item?
Item 3.
Okay, then we will hold item 3. Anything else?
No, that's it.
I see no other items being called for discussion.
Excuse me, Board President, would you also like to pull L4 since it's related to the preliminary budget until after?
I'm sorry, yes, thank you for that. We will also hold item 4. All right, then may I have a motion on the remaining items? That would be items L1, 2, and 5 through 11. 5 through 11. Is there a motion?
I move to approve items L1, L2, L5 through 11.
I will second. Will you take the roll?
President McCLAIN-HILL?
Aye.
Vice President Reyes?
Aye.
Commissioner BARAD Hopkins?
Aye.
Commissioner LEHRER?
It's okay. Yes.
Commissioner NEEMAN Brady?
Aye.
5 ayes.
Terrific, thank you. We are now moving to management reports. We have 4 reports, although I'm informed by our CFO that item number 3 related to legal fees, while there's a report prepared that some additional due diligence might yield an even more comprehensive report. So we will move that item to our next agenda. Again, there is a report attached to your agenda, but there will be some additional, I think there's some missing invoices and some other things that will supplement that report. So we will move that. That will leave us with items 1, 2, and 4. And we'll start with item number 1, LA 100 equity studies. Mr.
Good morning.
Yes.
The LA 100 Equity Strategy Study that builds upon the results of the groundbreaking LA 100 study is critically important for the future of Los Angeles and the LADWP as we look to equitably implement infrastructure investments for a clean energy future for the city of Los Angeles. Presenting on this landmark study today will be Simon Zodu, the Director of Transmission Planning, Regulatory, and Innovation Division, as well as P. Joy Chua, the Assistant Director of Transmission Planning, Regulatory, and Innovation Division.
Okay. Good morning, Commissioners. How are you? This presentation is to provide an update on our LA 100 Equity Strategy Study. I would like to start off by introducing the project team. Project team is responsible for managing the day-to-day activity of the study, performing the technical analysis and facilitating communication with our customers. As you can see, DWP's team includes management and engineering staff from Power System, the Joint System, and the Office of Community Affairs. For this study, LADWP is continuing its work with the National Renewable Energy Laboratory, NREL, and also partnering with UCLA for research and technical analysis. Last but not least, I would like to mention that Kearns & West is providing us with some services related to event facilitation and communication. So there is a big group that's really helping this effort. As background, as we all know, the LA 100 study identified multiple pathways for LADWP to achieve 100% clean energy as early as 2035. the study, what we learned from the study was that the LA100 study paved the way to 100% clean energy, but it calls for a major transition, a transition that we haven't embarked on in many years, for many years. So this would include transitioning our grid, modernizing our grid, electrifying our transportation and building sectors, allocating a significant amount of investment in doing so, and developing new programs and initiatives for it. Following that, the LA100 Equity Strategy Study was approved by the board, specifically to answer some critical questions, some fundamental questions related to energy justice, and such as how does the transition and all the associated investments be managed equitably in a way that all communities across the city are beneficiaries of the transition, including our most vulnerable communities. So on this slide, you see the definition of what energy justice is. It's simply put, energy justice refers to a framework of achieving equity in the benefits of the energy system, while we rectify and mitigate some of the disparities that we see in the system, especially burdens and disparities that affect frontline communities. In that regard, the goal of the Equity Strategy Study is to, for all communities across the city, to share in the benefits and the burdens of the transition, and to identify what policies that we need to put in place to make sure that we achieve such outcomes. From an objectives perspective, the Equity Strategy Study addresses the three tenets of energy justice, namely recognition justice, procedural justice, and distributional justice. I would like to take a minute to talk about each one of these major components because they're very important for our study. Recognition justice is about acknowledging historical inequities to help develop meaningful solutions in the future. It is about lessons learned on our programs and initiatives from the past and how it can help us shape the future. It will also reform programs that may perpetuate some inequities and build programs, new programs, that will be equitable for all Angelenos. On the other hand, procedural justice is about enabling community stakeholders to bring them to the table, to be able to frame some of the problems, develop some of the solutions and procedures, and be part of the solution, the solutions team. It's about being inclusive, being collaborative with our community members. It's about community members playing an authentic role in this process, and so that they can help us steer us in the right direction to meet our desired outcomes. Last but not least, I would like to talk about distributional justice, which is about really creating that equitable distribution of benefits and burdens that we talk about. And that should work for all communities, all segments of communities within the city of Los Angeles. This, I believe, is the most intensive portion of the study, and it's intended to provide the roadmap for our meaningful and equitable strategies that we try to strive. We believe that the policies that take energy justice into consideration will lead to improved energy access, better affordability for our customers, social and economic participation of our customers and stakeholders in the process, and reduction of health and environmental impacts for our communities. From a governance perspective, the LA100 Equity Strategies Project has convened two committees, namely a steering committee and an advisory committee. The steering committee that you see on the slide has 15 members. The committee is primarily comprised of community-based organizations that represent LA communities that have long been affected by energy injustice, and at the same time, they have lacked the power or the influence to shape any decisions related to energy. This is a creation as a spatial space for our community-based organizations so that they can share with their ideas with the department and shape the study as we pursue it. So the steering committee meets once a month, And the role of the steering committee is to provide the strategic direction that we need so that they can identify energy justice and energy equity outcomes as a result. Steering committee, in fact, enshrines what we call the procedural justice. They provide that community input and stakeholder input into the process. So far, we've had 4 steering committee meetings, and we have gathered a lot of information on a series of very important topics. On the other hand, the slide here is about the advisory committee. The advisory committee has 31 members. It's a much larger committee. A committee mainly composed of city council district offices, city agencies and departments, labor union, environmental advocacy groups, and other stakeholders. It meets bi-monthly, and its role is to provide input and feedback on topics and strategies identified by the steering committee. It also has a secondary role, which is, especially for our city departments, they can take what has been discussed and topics that have been addressed at the steering committee and see if there is any intersection with any other city programs, so that equity can flow from this DWP study to other city departments. So far, we've had 2 advisory committee meetings. Perhaps the most important component of the equity strategy study is community engagement. And the study calls specifically for a community-driven, a community-informed process to gather input and feedback so that we can integrate equity into our clean energy transition in the future. For that reason, we have expanded our outreach efforts extensively to include community engagement, such as community meetings and listening sessions, to help the public learn about the study, to provide input, and so that they can inform us on how the research should be done or conducted. Community meetings are open meetings to all LA residents, and they're structured to share an overview of the study and collect information from the public. We've had so far 2 community meetings, one in English and another one in Spanish. I would like to talk about the listening sessions, which are part of that community engagement, which are organized to have a smaller setting, more focused, where they are co-hosted with our community-based organizations, and have an in-depth discussion on specific topics of interest by the CBOs to help us get to that fair energy transition medium. Listening sessions will be conducted primarily in underserved communities of Los Angeles. The approach is to put disadvantaged community zones that are manageable by CBOs, and we have identified 5 zones within the disadvantaged community map of Los Angeles. They include East Los Angeles, South Los Angeles, Fernando Valley, the Harbor Region and Port area, and the Southeast LA. We've also expanded our community engagement through online tools and promotional materials to ensure that members of the public and the steering and advisory committee members have a single point of access to as much information as possible about the study and are able to provide input to the process. Such tools include our new website, which I'm very proud to announce. It's located at ladwp.com/LA100ES. And we have also prepared flyers, fact sheet, and a community input questionnaire as part of the website. Here is a screenshot of our new website. It houses all materials, such as presentations made to steering and advisory committees, including all the summaries of those meetings, as well as information from our research partners. So I invite everyone to visit this website. We've also have a social media presence, where feeds are designed to promote the study, and we have created a link to a community newsletter as well. Next, if I may, I would like to share our LA100 Equity Strategies Overview promotional video Both in English and Spanish versions of this video were made to share the objectives of the study with as many members of our community. If you can please play the video.
LADWP is on a fast track to a 100% clean energy future. Through the LA 100 equity strategies, you can help shape LA's energy future. We know from the LA 100 study results that reaching 100% carbon-free energy is achievable, and we want to be sure that our energy future is also equitable and benefits all of our customers, no matter where they live or do business. Because our city is for all of us, not just those with the most resources. A future powered by 100% clean energy is not just about expanding existing facilities and constructing new ones. We also need your participation to make the transition successful. That means more programs for expanding solar power, electric vehicles, and energy efficiency. It also means new jobs to make all of this a reality. But how do we make sure that everyone benefits from our clean energy transition? LADWP has partnered with NREL and UCLA to better understand what community members like you believe is needed to achieve a just and equitable energy future. If you look at a map of LA, you will see that the distribution of solar is not equal. Home ownership and affordability play a role in this. But the sun shines all over LA. So how can we harness this resource from every part of our city so all of our customers can take part and benefit? We are also working to electrify transportation. How can we make charging stations accessible to everyone, including customers who don't have private garages? As we look to make buildings across LA more energy efficient, how can we make sure programs also benefit customers who rent or don't have the disposable income available to upgrade their homes? And as new jobs are created, how can we make them available to the Angelenos who need them most? With LA 100 equity strategies, you have a voice in LA's clean energy future. Your input can help shape LA's future so that it benefits everyone equitably. Visit ladwp.com/LA100ES to learn more and to participate.
I would like to take this moment to thank our Office of Community Affairs for their assistance in expanding our community engagement. They're doing an excellent job in helping us with that. I'll stop here for now and hand it over to Pijo Chua, who will be discussing what we heard from our meetings so far from our stakeholders. Pijo.
Thank you, Simon. The LA 100 Equity Strategy Study is about collaboration with our community stakeholders, and it requires a lot of listening, learning, and understanding our communities, as well as their experiences. To that end, over the past few months, members of our steering and advisory committees have been very active in providing LADWP and our research partners relevant information that lead toward equity-centered policies and program outcomes. These are vital to our frontline communities. That input will then feed into the Equity Strategies study. So far, just as Simon mentioned, a total of 8 meetings have been held, where we were able to gather input, feedback, perspectives, recommendations, and innovative ideas, as well as areas of interests that need to be studied. In reviewing the summaries of the steering and advisory committee meetings, 7 common themes that are listed on this slide were identified as major and cross-cutting areas of interest. So first, rate reform and affordability, which refers to maintaining and reducing energy burdens. Second, the need for new and accessible programs related to residential and commercial buildings. Third, increasing the deployment of local solar and storage. Fourth, equitable transportation electrification, which refers to accessibility of EV infrastructure and systems. Fifth, reliability and resiliency. Here we have a call for increased resiliency projects in disadvantaged communities. Sixth, the improvement of air quality, health, environment through the electrification of transportation and also in reduction of emissions. And number seven, opportunities in jobs and workforce development. In the following slides, I would like to briefly share some of the main takeaways under each area of interest. Under rate reform and affordability, the primary topics of interest were electric bill stability for both renter and owner-occupied low-income households. Also, the development of equitable retail rate options to facilitate solar adoption in disadvantaged communities. Under residential and commercial buildings, the main interests are accessibility of demand flexibility programs, including increasing technological readiness of low-income households. Also, how do we increase accessibility of solar, storage, and efficiency programs to these multifamily and renter-occupied properties? In the next slide, under local solar and storage, the most prevalent topic has been targeted community solar siting and financing strategies in these disadvantaged communities. Under transportation electrification, what we have found is we need to look at equitable EV access and charging infrastructure to help increase EV adoption rates. Also, access to mobility opportunities and reduce the burden of transportation energy. For reliability and resiliency, discussions focused on building resiliency in disadvantaged communities, such as reducing morbidity during extreme heat events, increasing access to community cooling centers, and having targeted solar plus storage to help ride through power outages. Now, regarding air quality, health, and environment, the main area of interest is to have a better understanding of the impact of the energy system and the transportation sector on the community's air quality and health environment. And last but not least, jobs and workforce development. The main area of interest is how can we inject economic vitality in disadvantaged communities? Could we do this through clean energy jobs, job training, workforce development, local hiring, project labor agreements, promoting apprenticeship programs, and internships? Now I'd like to turn it back to Simon to continue the presentation.
Okay, I will follow up with the chart that you see here. This is a chart for a project timeline and framework for the LA 100 Equity Strategy Study. Briefly, it shows the schedules for the steering committee and advisory committee meetings that we will hold until May of 2023. It also includes our continuous engagement with the community. That's going to be the forefront and the focal point of our attention, and work that will be accomplished by our research partners, both NREL and UCLA. Before we conclude, I would like to briefly highlight two important and separate items that are related to the equity strategy study, and we receive a lot of questions on those. The first one is equity strategies relationship with the strategic long-term resource plan, or SLTRP. It is important to note that the recommendations that will come out of the SLTRP will be implemented over the next 15 to 20 years. And I would like to highlight and underscore the fact that those outcomes of the LA 100 Equity Strategy Study will be incorporated over the years in the projects and programs and initiatives that will come out of the SLTRP process. So we see the two initiatives merging sometime around 2023 so that we can blend in our findings of the study into the SLTRP output. But we're not waiting until 2023. We're trying to make sure that the two initiatives in parallel are communicating with each other. For that reason, the Equity Strategies team has made a presentation to the SLTRP advisory group to make sure that they are aware of the study and the objectives. And in the coming months, a presentation will be made by the SLTRP team to the Equity Strategy Steering Committee to see what equity will look like under the different scenarios that they're looking at. So, and we're going to gather a lot of input to make sure that the SLTRP process is absorbing some equity-related factors as it moves forward. The last piece is going to be what is the relationship between equity strategies and equity metrics data initiative? Vice President SUSANA REYES on the last board meeting asked that question. A brief remark on that. Once the LA 100 equity strategies are established, to ensure that such strategies are going to be operationalized, measured, and monitored for success, in the future, results of the equity strategy will be incorporated into the equity metrics data initiative. So we are working with the Diversity, Equity, and Initiatives Office to make sure that they're aware of the equity strategies. They participate in our meetings, and we'll use the Equity Metrics Data Initiative as a yardstick, a barometer in the future to make sure that we work with our CBOs and community-based organizations will continue with the Equity Metrics Data Initiative. So that concludes our update, and we'll be very happy to answer your questions.
Are there any questions among board members?
I have a question.
Certainly.
And it's associated with a
Could you turn your camera on?
Sure.
Thank you. There you go.
Yeah. What is it, what is the water study that is at the same level of?
There isn't a water study that's taking place at this juncture related to equity. This study is specifically studied as a follow-on to the LA 100, which looked at the power and electrification of the city and the department's power system. So there's nothing on the water side that is occurring at this time.
Okay, I would imagine that given the brief presentation on water supply, that there will be some form of a study that leads us to this uncertain future, through this uncertain future.
Well, certainly, I suspect that I understand the water system is looking at doing some large-scale strategic planning along the lines of, or as they are working and rolling out Operation Next. In the context of that planning, there will be opportunity to discuss equity impacts.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions or comments?
I just want to thank you for the report and for giving more clarification as to how every piece that we're talking about that deals with equity, that's, for example, the SLTRP, the equity metrics, and this strategy, 100% LA 100 equity strategies will really coalesce in as a comprehensive vision for the department when it comes to a just transition, right? That we are mindful of the communities where we are going to operate our projects, and that we are getting the input from the communities as well as to how they want to see those projects, and really looking at, for me, it's the three legs of sustainability, looking at this, the economic impact as well, so that then we leave them with no additional harm to that community, that they are able to benefit from the work that we are, providing, and the services that we are providing. So in a way, it's a little bit of a struggle to have a very complete, holistic vision, but I think we're on track, given the report that you just did. I'm also curious in terms of agenda setting. When we set the agenda, that we are mindful that we also work with the steering committee and or the advisory committee as well to help design that agenda. Yes. That it's not a top-down agenda, that is already predetermined, that we know, oh, for the next meeting, we're gonna do this, this, and this, but really get their input. If it is a true collaboration, you start from scratch, like every day that you're making the agenda, like how are we moving, looking at taking their input as well, so that at least you have a feel of where our partners are going to, what is important to them and how they're envisioning the next steps to be. So I'm just very, mindful about that, and I hope that you are too, when you do the agenda setting for the meetings that you have. And then specifically when we do the community outreach, that's another thing, that's another area where we should be, we should recognize community input, and trying to really assuage our stakeholders, that we're there for them, and that they have to be, that we're authentic, and that we are giving this time and effort, that it's an investment on our part to make this happen.
Okay. If I may respond regarding agenda setting, starting from last month, the steering committee members propose agenda items, and that's going to be an open question that they can provide us with topics of interest, and we'll make sure that we'll schedule those in the coming months. So we've already started that process.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Obviously, I have a few. First, thank you for this presentation. It gives me, it's very encouraging. I am well aware of the work that's been done by the department and by all of the folks that are supporting us, but significantly by this department to put together the infrastructure necessary to carry out a project like this. And Reiko, your entire team has been extraordinary. Simon, your leadership has been peerless. I also want to say that as Marty, Reiko, and I and others, SUSANA moved throughout the city, throughout the state, and frankly throughout the country, the thing that continues to draw an extraordinary amount of interest in any conversation that we have is this study when we bring it up. The prospect of, in a concrete way, laying out an agenda related to equity alongside an actual work and operational plan has never been done. And there are, at this moment, there is great interest across the nation and at every level of government in questions of equity. I think that there is no longer a resistance to taking on that topic, that charge. What there is now is a great deal of confusion about, like, what does that look like? What do you do about it? How do you, in a real, concrete, meaningful way, move forward? And those questions are being asked with great sincerity and humility. So the prospect of this department and this city providing a roadmap to how you begin to think about, work with community, and devise an actual plan of action that is grounded in equity, that achieves something as extraordinary as the transition of our, our power system is a pretty significant thing. So I just feel a great deal of responsibility and a great deal of, I won't say pressure, but a little bit. say it. To make sure that, I want us to be really clear how important this is. And I know that in speaking with some of the community stakeholders, they feel equally committed and understand its importance. And as much work as we've done to get to this point, I know we've got a lot more to do. I mean, to Commissioner Reyes's point about what working with people looks like versus getting work done. It's a very different paradigm. And it just takes so much time and so much energy and so much convening and setting the table. And so I know you've got your hands full. I look forward to being supportive in any way that I can. And I know that this board will be willing to stand behind whatever efforts are necessary to really to finish this project in a way that leaves us with as much pride and as much substantive significance as the LA 100 study itself. That's the goal. And I just want to say thank you very, very much for taking this on and to just let you know how incredibly important it is. It seems like just a little ancillary thing that 5 years ago would have had nothing to do with the jobs that people in this department hold, but it is central to how we plan the future moving forward. So I thank you for that.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions, comments?
Yeah, if I may, so recognizing that it's International Women's Day, when you showed the team, noted that 12 of the 18 are women. Another, not sure if you're aware, but Marty is the representative of the department on the Large Public Power Council, which is the 27th largest municipal utilities in the country. There is also an Emerging Trends Task Force, of which a number of our directors are chairs of those efforts, and Simon is leading the effort for those utilities on equity strategies. There are a number of utilities doing some work in this space, but nobody nearly as comprehensive as what LADWP is undertaking. So I think that this will also help populate across the country as other utilities look to also emulate what LADWP is doing.
Well, thank you for that. I really appreciate it. So with that, Simon.
Good. Thank you.
Thank you. We will move on to our next presentation and our next management report, and that is the Office of Ratepayer Advocate, or Office of Public Accountability. Ratepayer Advocate has a presentation in response to a department board motion. And then following that, we will go to the preliminary budget presentation. Fred, are you going to take it away from here?
I am.
Thank you, sir.
I'm Fred Pickle, Executive Director of the Office of Public Accountability Ratepayer Advocate. And can we flip to the next slide, please? The board issued a resolution on January 11th requesting a number of changes in response to criminal cases, questions of conduct, and other concerns. One of the directions under that resolution was for us to provide a report on recommendations for additional remedial action within 45 days. This summarizes that report. The full report is 22 pages, and I'll comment on some of the primary conclusions of that as I go forward. Next slide. To put our comments into perspective, I thought I'd do a brief synopsis of directions made in the DWP resolution, and if I've summarized any of these incorrectly, board members speak up. The first is a prohibition on entities giving legal services and acting as a consultant. The second is a conflict stress test for outside legal counsel, tested under threat of perjury. The third is a request by the CFO and Chief Accounting Officer to report costs related to all billing and PwC-related cases, consulting, and investigations. The fourth is turning legal reporting into a regular report, semi-annual reports by the CFO by legal matter and firm. The fifth is the hiring and staffing of an inspector general. The sixth is the chief accounting employee acting to process and forward waste, fraud, and abuse, and law enforcement reports to the OPA and or the DWP IG. Finally, the Chief Procurement Officer is to begin reporting on on the conformance of transactions before the DWP board with DWP practices and standards, or if there are exceptions to those practices and standards. Those are the directions in the DWP resolution, and then the eighth is asking us for our additional suggestions on remediation. Next slide. Our recommendations, and note the OPA can give recommendations but not direction, are 6 primary recommendations. The report has a total of 41 recommendations. Among the primary recommendations, there's amnesty for all small commercial and residential customers with extended bills with consumption before mid-2018. This is to clear up issues related to Rule 17D. The second, there should be regular rate reviews set by both the board and council. The board has the authority to do rate reviews on its own, but frequently in non-public discussions with council president and the mayor, rate reviews have been held up. We want to formalize that process so it's transparent, and there are required actions by the council if a 4-year cycle on rate reviews is held up. And in particular, we're recommending a fixed 4-year cycle because of the amount of time it takes for DWP to prepare for a rate review. Third, we would like reports developed from court materials or by one of the special masters to verify settlement restitution with public info on the structure and composition of the settlement payments. As part of that, we'd like to verify large account billing and meters for water and power. Fourth, we would like to have a stronger meter to cash function with specific separation of duties. Recently, a reorganization has moved some functions back from power under the customer service division, and that's an important first step. So that leads to the fifth recommendation. The board should supervise plans and funding for the customer service division improvements and simplify staffing authority for the customer service division and power control center so that they can use their staffing budgets without restriction to fill positions, because those are CSD is both high priority and has high turnover, and the power control center has high priority to keep those positions filled. And sixth, we would like to supervise DWP measures to turn off or remove active communicating meters that are not billed. There's a report from the beginning of the building remediation efforts that said there were 2,400 meters that were large meters that were communicating and not billed. While Ann was saying there are 41 recommendations, recommendations number 31 to 37 are especially important today because they're making suggestions for future. Yes.
So that last one, I don't really understand. Supervised measures. So are you suggesting you'd like to, OPA would like to supervise the turning off of those 2,400? What is this, what is the suggestion then?
It's for the board to supervise and make sure that there is follow-up on specific reports related to that.
So is what you really mean that we receive a report of the process and or the activity around turning off and removing active meters?
And verify that it's taken place?
Okay. I'm
not just a report, supervise the measures.
I know we haven't had the benefit of chatting about this, but I'm trying to figure out how to make this your recommendations as actionable as possible. So
correct. And this is not just for a single report. It is for what actions are being taken, what's next, what's your progress, are you done yet?
And so this goes more to the audit requests that you have, is that right? Or audit?
There are components of audit requests on some of this. This is trying to summarize that. And in particular for today, because the preliminary budget is before us, our report came out 11 days ago, so it is not timely to tag, well, where is it, to recommendations 31 through 37 related to the preliminary budget. But as you look at the preliminary budget and think about preliminary budget issues, keep in mind some of the issues discussed in recommendations 31 through 37. Especially challenging is the forecast of future sales. Coming out of the pandemic, we're not at all sure how sales are going to move up or down, and we also are seeing countervailing pressures for sales. One, there is increased adoption of solar behind the meter, but on the other hand, there's increased adoption of electric vehicles. Electric vehicles change is likely to be slow because people keep their vehicles for a long time. So it's a challenging process. There's uncertainty in these forecasts, but the sales fundamentally affect in direct inverse proportion our rates. So it's a major issue. Now, I've tried to synthesize these recommendations into general categories of goals. Next slide. The resolution, the goals are improved governance and separation of duties, better transparency, enhanced trust, and bring closure to the billing remediation and the related litigation, and finally improve customer service. All of these things indirectly affect customer service. I've ticked the box, not in this chart, but in the next chart, for things that directly help customer service. As we go through the resolution goals, no dual role for legal and consulting helps with separation of duties, better transparency, and to enhance trust. The conflict stress test helps also in the same three categories. The CFO cost report brings better transparency to what's happened over the last few years on litigation costs, and hopefully it helps bring closure. The legal cost regular report helps bring better transparency and enhance trust. The Inspector General should bring better improve governance and separation of duties and also enhance trust. Depending on how the Inspector General operates, it may or may not improve transparency. Waste, fraud, and abuse referrals will also help with separation of duties and enhancing trust. And the CFO reports, or Chief Procurement Officer reports, help with improving separation of duties and governance, better transparency, and enhancing trust. Next slide. The OPA's primary recommendations are first, amnesty for prior to mid-18 bills, enhancing trust, bringing closure, the regular rate reviews, improve governance, better transparency, and enhancing trust, verifying restitution and large account bills, better transparency, enhancing trust, and bringing closure, building a better to meter to cash function, helps in all categories, the customer service reorganization and improvement helps in all categories, and finding missing active meters helps in improved governance, better transparency, enhancing trust, and improving customer service. Are there any questions?
I have a question. I don't know if this is the right time, but it seems to me that it impacts item number 3 and 4 that I brought up before. And Fred, I would appreciate you explaining, how do we explain to the community that we have, it looks to me like we're going to raise their bills, their receipts from the power system, and how do we explain that in view of all that we've been through this past couple of years? So how do we explain that the fact that we're going to raise the power bills?
The litigation and related components are, in all cost components, probably less than $100 million. Our total budget annually is between 7 and 8 billion. So the impact of what we're going through has been a tremendous distraction to the organization. It has probably had productivity impacts, probably larger than the damages, but annually. But we're trying to move beyond this, trying to fix some of the governance issues that led to this. We're trying to enhance trust in nearly every checkbox, and build better transparency. So the answer is the board and I think all parties are trying to help DWP get beyond this. Yes, some things, it's likely rates will go up, but rates will probably go up more from increased costs of natural gas and general inflation than anything caused by this.
Any other questions or comments? All right. I actually have.
I will say one thing, Cynthia.
Oh, go ahead, Nicole.
Okay. The report that you issued is 22 pages. Very, very detailed, very thorough, thoughtful. there is a lot in there. And there's a fear that it can be just overwhelming, I think, for it to be received. So I think it's going to be important to figure out how to make it digestible and actionable. And I think you this summary is helpful. But I encourage everybody to be collaborative and trying to figure out how to address some of these issues, those that need to be addressed and those that perhaps we should just be observed and monitored better. So no real action except that, Fred, I hope this is not one and done and that we can continue to have a conversation about all this.
If you direct me to pester you, I will.
No, we don't direct, we request. So a couple things, and thank you. Nicole, were you done? A couple things. Fred, thank you for this report. One of your, in your response to Jill, you indicated that this is a $6 to $7 billion entity. And unlike a private sector company that would have a board of directors and shareholders and regulatory scrutiny up the yin-yang, the Department of Water and Power has us. They have the Board of Commissioners and the OPA, Office of Public Accountability, as the first line and most comprehensive line of oversight. Obviously, there is a civic government, but our structure is not one that that causes them to be in a significant way overseeing the not minutia, but the real specific issues that are necessary in order to ensure good governance, in order to ensure effective and efficient, reliable operations, not as a power or water service provider, but as a business. And it is incumbent upon us to begin to look at any number of these issues in a very, very strategic and serious and substantive way. And to Nicole's point, to begin to think about how we operationalize with our management team recommendations. We are here because of a catastrophic collapse of all of the systems that were in place to oversee governance. Again, you do not have wide-scale criminality and fraud and abuse take place without there being some real lapses and some real both lapses in governance, lapses in transparency, and failure to focus on areas of weaknesses. I am particularly interested in looking closely at the issue related to amnesty prior to mid-2018. One of the things, although we did not go over today, the cost associated with the litigation and other issues related to the breakdown of our, or the
Still broadcasting. There you go. They're back.
There you go, it's back up.
Okay. I was saying that, while we were looking at, we did not go over costs associated with the billing system. Those costs assembled on one page are nearly $100 million. And again, Dr. Pickle made reference to the, did I lose my WebEx?
We can't see people.
Yeah.
Yeah. Why don't we take a recess at this moment for technical difficulties and then reconvene once we have confirmation that everybody is back on?
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
We are in
We
recess.
will recess. Okay. Yeah, when I looked tonight, I couldn't find
We lost our little pictures, right?
nobody there, so that means we lost everybody.
Just remember that you still may be live, even though.
You're back.
Are you back? Ah, you're back.
We can hear you now, yeah.
As soon as we have confirmation.
This is something. Oh, noon. Should be.
Yeah, so.
Good. Perfect. Madam President, we are
Yes.
recording.
Terrific. Would you please call the roll, Board Secretary?
Board President McCLAIN-HILL.
Present.
Vice President Reyes.
Present.
Commissioner BARAD Hopkins. Commissioner LEHRER. Commissioner NEEMAN Brady.
Commissioner LEHRER, I see you on the screen. Are you present?
I'm present.
Terrific. Joe B., do we need to say anything, or
Nope,
can
we
we
are
just
good to
keep
go.
going?
We
Okay,
are back in
terrific.
session.
Then we are back in session. I think when we lost our audio, I was commenting on the first recommendation from the OPA and making the point that that we have spent, north of $100 million, I'm certain, when it's all said and done, just on the litigation associated with this matter and other costs that we have lost, I am sure, in terms of productivity, at least 10 times that amount, and that we have lost or the damage to public trust associated with this incident is incalculable and the most difficult thing to win back once squandered. Given that, it seems to me that moving forward with and giving serious consideration to some form of amnesty with respect to some of these quote unquote past billing failures or inability to collect, et cetera, may make a great deal of sense, and I'll look forward to working with management to explore and to understand how we might move that forward. The question of verifying restitution and large account bills, again, as we continue to decouple the activities of past council and past leadership, revisiting these issues may also well be something that we should strongly consider, both as it relates to transparency and trust, and as a means of, again, bringing closure. I do appreciate that we have a ongoing litigation on this matter, so we'll not spend a lot of time talking about that at this juncture in open session. With respect to the building better meter to cash, I am going to be looking forward to a presentation around these practices where we can both better understand these issues and how we will monitor and work with the department to ensure that these matters are being handled in an efficient and in a way that we can all have confidence in. And the issue of missing active meters is another area that I think cries out for additional exploration. And to Commissioner NEEMAN Brady's point, this is not one and done. We will need to break some of this down, get specific and detailed presentations so that we can then begin to work with our management team and start to direct appropriate action so that we can enhance, improve customer service, enhance trust, ensure transparency, and all of which, frankly, are critical parts of our obligations as this department's ultimate leadership and part of our role in ensuring good governance. So I look forward to additional dialogue. We'll make additional requests upon the OPA so that we can begin to break down these recommendations and work with them in a way to move things forward. If there are no other questions or comments on this, terrific, then we will move to, I know that we have the next is our preliminary budget presentation. I would, given the time, look for a break, but I know that we've got some quorum issues that I've got to be mindful of. So we're going to press through on that and move directly to our CFO. So Ann.
Good morning, Commissioners. We're here today to present the preliminary budget for fiscal year 22-23. And we do have the budget office online for if we need additional help with questions. Director Marianne Ann's, Elizabeth Azra, and Sunny Viets have worked extensively with the department to help put this together, and I greatly appreciate the budget office help and all the budget coordinators. So as we prepared this budget for 22-23, we look to create a budget that is consistent with our corporate strategic plan, our approved rates, and our financial plans to support infrastructure investment, comply with our regulatory mandates, and provide exemplary customer service. We continue to emphasize cost control and fiscal discipline to maintain our financial metrics and preserve our low-cost borrowing. And we also wanted to be realistic in our hiring and plan for related space needs and improvements. So as a preliminary overview, and we'll go through each system individually, we have a preliminary budget for this fiscal year of $7,854,000,000, which is just $9 million more than what was approved for fiscal year 21-22. And so we do have the changes highlighted, and these are from the approved budget from the last fiscal year. And we'll walk through each one of these. And this snapshot, we present the budget in two snapshots. One is how each senior assistant general manager requests money to fund activities, and then we'll take a step back and look at the overall accounting as to our operations and our capital expenditures and how this all ties in. So one of the important things to the department is our staffing. And so this graph shows that for fiscal year 22-23, we are requesting an increase to our annual personnel resolution. The top blue line shows for the preliminary budget, $13,261. That's the APR. And then we would request funding for positions of $11,828. And when we report next time, we'll look at how that compares. There is vacancy factors. There is a vacancy factor says you may not hire every position. We just don't know which positions will not get filled. And when we look at that 11,828 positions, that's the middle one. This is what the budget encompasses, 4,266 positions in the joint organization, 2,292 positions in water system, and 5,267 in power system. And so the far left column is our occupancy as of January. The middle one is the budget request for 22-23. And then if the whole APR was occupied, this is how it would be the 13,261. And below it is a breakdown of our labor costs, our overtime, and our benefits. So out of that $7.8 billion, $2.4 billion of it is for labor, overtime, and benefits for our staff. Now, last fiscal year, the department, the board approved 501 positions for power system and 200 for water.
So I'm sorry, I just have a question. What is the benefit of having the APR so much higher than either what we intend to fund and the number of positions that we actually have?
Sometimes divisions will have to increase staffing for particular needs. It may go up, but then it can come back down. And a lot of times when a position is added to the APR, we don't take it away once that position need has gone away. So that typically has added. I can only think of once back in maybe 2012 when we cut the APR to under 10,000 when General Manager Nichols was here. But normally it's to give the divisions flexibility as far as do they need to hire an engineer, do they need to hire an operator or something else.
But the APR is significantly higher than the number of people that we actually have and the number of people that we're actually funding. So I'm just trying to understand what the impact is and what the benefit of that is.
So one thing that's happened, Ann mentioned vacancy factors. So as we've talked before, a lot of positions are promotional and filled within. And so there's a certain amount of churn within the workforce now as you fill positions. And typically people come in at the bottom and move up. And so because of that, it's, we've told everybody that you may hire up to your APR. The reality is because you have to fill these holes in the Swiss cheese as you go, there's always vacancies. And so what we've done in this, we've not restricted anybody's hiring and given everybody the positions they've identified. And they could be different types of positions where people could move and change those positions. But for the budget purpose, we want to make sure that we didn't put so much money in the budget that we didn't believe we would actually spend. So we're not restricting anyone's hiring or capabilities to hire, but we identified a dollar amount that we think is realistic based on the actual hiring process and the timing. So
the APR captures what in mass the department says they need to actually accomplish what they want to do.
And ideally what we have, if we could get there all at once.
Right, no, I get that. So, but that's what the APR captures. And then the funded position is what we're actually expecting to do.
Right.
So if there's a gap between the APR and the funded positions, then we are just acknowledging that regardless of what we say, you can do what you want, but if we're funding at a different rate, then, whatever that wish list is that represents the APR is.
Right. And for instance, you may, with the budget passed on day one, if you have vacancies, you'll fill those throughout the course of the year as civil service lists generate or vacancies open up, people move up through the ranks and create other positions. So the dollars are tied to what we think will actually get spent and the timing of when it'll get spent, aggregated to that, all those positions for all those people to move into have to exist in the APR overall. So the dollars we believe are realistic. The positions is what we're targeting to get to.
And the APR is the maximum. A division may have a little bit more in their APR because they don't know if they're going to hire an administrative clerk or a senior administrative clerk. There may be 2 positions in there, but they only fund 1 because they think that's the one that they're going to hire.
Okay, so I guess what I'm curious about then, and we'll talk later, and I'm sorry, is that, there's a consistent gap between the occupancy and the funded headcount, and then a large gap between that and the APR. And so I will be interested to understand how that, from an operations perspective, what the implications are as it relates to the actual work that we say we need to get done. Because at some point, it all has to align, or I'm just very confused.
And I think some of these positions are the line mechanic series that have trouble staffing up, but the APR positions are still there.
Right. And some may be succession planning positions also in the APR, so we can hire ahead, that sort of thing. But you're right. I mean, ideally, you'd want to get the funded. If we could get occupancy to match funded, we would have accomplished something that's always a challenge every year, and that's to be able to fill positions as fast as we're hoping to, and the funding is what we think is a realistic target to get to.
Okay. And then I guess my other question is, it seems like joint is growing pretty fast. I'm struck by how water systems is not really, it's been pretty modest, whereas joint is picking up. Power system is also moving at a pretty strong clip, but it's interesting the degree to which, and this is the Department of Water and Power, but if we keep at this rate, the joint system is going to be as big as the power system in a minute. And I think we're all going to want to understand the relative benefit of that to the organization as a whole as it relates to efficiency and operations, et cetera.
Right. And your biggest growth areas in joint are probably both the IT staff and customer service.
Okay.
So as I mentioned, last budget year, power system added 501 positions and water added 200. This year we have seen requests for joint organizations. And last fiscal year, the general manager had a planning budget APR of 181 positions. And as part of this budget, we started to use those positions for fiscal year 22-23. So supply chain services has requested 10, security services 20, human resources, health and benefits section 2, occupational health 1, sustainability 14, real estate 40, financial service organization 23, city attorney 1, general manager's office 1, EEO for 1, and corporate health and safety for 15. So we've used 128 of those 181 positions and moved it out of the planning organization into these current organizations. In addition to that, and this is the reason for the increase in the APR, IT requested 90 positions and customer service requested 173 positions. Retirement office requested 9. So we added those 272 new positions to grow the APR to the 13,261. And we know that in the general manager's planning organization, there's 53 positions left, but we have earmarked those, and we'll bring this back as part of the final budget, 8 positions for the Office of Inspector General, 4 additional positions for corporate facilities, the Capital Construction Organization, sustainability for 3 positions, diversity, equity, inclusion for 9 positions, and corporate health and safety for 1 more position. And here's a snapshot as to those 272 positions, in addition to everything else that was added, to show here the proposed preliminary APR of the 13,261, the funded headcount, and then the occupancy as of January. So every organization has funded positions to grow based on their operational need. And embedded in the capital planning or the labor planning also is funds for our exempt workforce. So there's almost 50.7 billion, including regular labor and overtime, in the labor budget for the daily workers. So we took a snapshot as of January 16th. We had 596 positions working for the department in various classifications. These positions can be hired above and beyond the APR that each division has been given. There's labor dollars in the budget for that.
So you're saying, so you meant 50.7 million?
Million, yes.
Yeah.
Did I say billion?
I think you said billion.
You said billion with a B.
I was hoping my hearing was wrong.
They're very well paid.
Just, Ann, go back to the slide real quick.
Yeah.
Just to point out, so construction, electrical, and mechanic is one of the biggest groups, 130, and so that's something we're aware of, and we worked in core agreement with the union on that, and that helps Brian Wolver in the projects that he has. And then the other biggest group is the UPCTs, so they're also in the exempts, and we're at 132. So those are but those kind of folks, both union hall labor that we get out of the hall, called daily rates, and UPCT are covered in this program.
All right.
So we'll take a little bit of a deeper look at power systems. So power systems preliminary budget is $3,528 million. It is down 3% from what was approved last time. However, there is a growth opportunity because they've re-estimated the current budget just under $3.4 billion. And one of the largest expenditures for power system is the top row, fuel and purchase power and emissions. That's about 42% of the budget, followed by regular labor of 26%. But you can see that there's increases in materials and supplies and fleet purchases. So we dug a little deeper into that one. And this is because there's additional materials and supplies for Haynes Generating Station addition and betterments, some additional materials and supplies for a power new business, and then also we have some significant fleet purchases planned for fiscal year 22-23. And as I mentioned, 42% of power systems budget's fuel and purchase power. This is a snapshot of the almost $1.5 billion in fuel and purchase power that's in the 22-23 budget. It is it's going to generate support for the current budget is 44.1% of our portfolio standards going to be met. And for the program year 22-23, 46.7% of our power will be from renewable resources. We are seeing an increase in the current re-estimated budget for 21-22 of $1.6 billion, and that's because of higher natural gas and coal prices that we're experiencing right now. I'm going to turn it over to Power System to talk about some of the accomplishments and the goals for 22-23.
Sure. So despite COVID and its many challenges, the Power System has had some noteworthy successes this last year. Similar to last year, for Power Systems accomplishments and strategic investment, each director or manager that oversees that particular area will present their respective slide. So for this slide, we have Steve Pruitt, our Manager of Energy Reconciliation and Power External Energy Resources.
Thank you. April 1st, 2021, DWP joined the energy imbalance market and did that in a smooth manner without, fortunately, significant issues. And looking at the first 9 months
of that, we saw about a 4.6% reduction in LADWP's use of fossil fuels due to EIM participation. And what that participation looked like for the rest of 2021, 9 months, we had a total amount of exports, which are sales into that market, of 516,000 megawatt hours, and imports, which are essentially purchases of lower cost energy, at just over 1 million megawatt hours from that market. Time-wise, we imported 62% of the time and exported about 38% of the time throughout those 9 months. And according to the CAISO's gross benefits summary, which they publish, the total of the 3 quarters, calendar year quarters, Q2, Q3, Q4 of 2021, saw a value to LADWP of $42.71 million.
Thank you, Steve. Next slide. We will have Jason Rondu, the Director of Resource Planning, Development, and Programs, present the next 2 slides.
Great, thank you, Reiko. My audio is okay?
Yeah.
So last year, about a year ago, almost exactly, we completed the LA100 study. So that was a groundbreaking study that charted different pathways to achieve 100% renewable energy. What we found from that study is that there are a number of investments that we need to make today, that we don't need to wait to develop a power plan, investments that we need to make today, regardless of how we get to 100% renewable energy. And that constituted the LA100 Next Steps efforts. That included accelerating transmission, renewables, investing in our local generation fleet, such as Scattergood and Haynes as well as accelerating DER adoption and storage. We also kicked off the 2022 Strategic Long-Term Resource Plan, which will help identify exactly how we get to 100% renewable energy, and that is expected to be completed this summer. The LA100 study also showed us that to do 100% equitably, we need to have intentionally designed programs and policies, and we kicked off the LA100 Equity Strategies effort, which you heard an update on today. The LA100 study also identified the amount of jobs that this transition will create, but it did not identify how many positions and what type of positions LADWP itself would need to do, would need to hire, and we also kicked off the Integrated Human Resource Plan to help us understand what specific positions we will need to hire in order to achieve these goals. So with this graphic, you can see how these efforts fit together, and as you heard earlier today, the equity strategies effort will have significant impact on how we design our programs and plan our power system in the future, and there'll be opportunities for near-term updates as well. On the next slide, you'll see some specific things that we've achieved this past year to help us keep us on track to achieve these goals. The Red Cloud wind project, our largest and our lowest cost wind project to date, was put into service in December. And that's actually going to bring us from 55% clean energy today to over 60%, 61% by the end of this calendar year. So this is a major, major step in direction of decarbonization. We also are expanding our geothermal portfolio. That will be expanded this year with more projects coming online. And we often, and year after year, play a lead role in local solar adoption, and we will actually, I think we have exceeded 550 megawatts for this past year. Looking forward, we expect to need to have 675 megawatts of new renewable and storage projects negotiated and brought to this board for approval for this coming fiscal year. We, again, expect to complete the SLTRP, our power plan. We also are investing in expanding our storage capability, both locally and at the utility scale, and part of that is to expand our Beacon Energy Storage project as well. We have updated our industry-leading feed-in tariff program to include storage, and we expect to see 10 megawatts of storage in conjunction with feed-in tariff projects get awarded this coming fiscal year. And we also expanded our distributed energy resource procurement efforts, so a new way of procuring distributed resources. That RFP process is underway, and we expect to award very, very shortly, and actually expect to see some of those projects come online next fiscal year. To wrap this up, we also are expanding our demand response portfolio as well. So we expect to see 75 megawatts of capacity come online this next fiscal year. Rika, that's all the update I have.
Great, thank you, Jason, for the next.
Really quick question, Rika, sorry.
Yes, sure.
Have all programs that were on hold due to COVID resumed now?
No, there is at least one, there's probably multiple, but there's one program that is still on hold to my knowledge. And if others are aware differently, please correct me, but our solar rooftops program is still on hold, I believe, again, unless others have heard otherwise. And that program is really important for us because that helps reach customers who can't afford to get solar, and it's a program where we have installed solar on customers' roofs and actually provide them an opportunity to get income in exchange for hosting those solar installations. So that is one a major program that we would like to see expanded in the future, but is currently on hold. And if there are others, we can certainly follow up with you and get you a more complete answer.
I have a question as well. This slide says renewables and reliability, and I know that we've put a lot of energy and there's been a lot of sort of planning around scattergood and its relationship to reliability. Have we made any, we've made some decisions around that. I don't see anything with respect to any benchmarks, landmarks, or benchmarks or any achievements with respect to moving that project forward. Where are we?
Yeah, there's two related efforts that we're working on, and I think Louis Ting could probably provide an update on the scattergood new capacity that we are proposing. But we also are seeking an extension to the existing scattergood 1 and 2 units that has particular importance for us near term as we try to build out our transmission system and also maintain resiliency. In conjunction with that, we are moving forward with adding or proposing new capacity for scattergood 1 and 2. And Louis, I'm not sure if you or staff intend to provide an update on that.
I was going to say, is that part of an upcoming update, Rika?
I hope so.
Louis is right here, so he'll answer it now.
Okay.
So as for the new capacity at scattered green hydrogen capacity, that is in the process of going through the preliminary CEQA preparation. So we're working with our environmental groups on getting the CEQA ready, but also we have submitted the ordinance for approval for CO review right now, and so it's a draft for an ordinance to do a design build project at Scattergood.
When do you anticipate that coming to the board?
Right now it's under CO review, so we anticipate any time to be within the next 3 months or so.
Okay, I just want to keep an eye on that. I know it's pretty critical to, the operation of our system in general, and I just don't want to lose sight of it as we're continuing to bring in additional capacity through renewables and other measures. So thank you.
Great. Any other questions for Jason?
All right, thank you very much.
Good.
All right, thank you, Jason. So for the next slide, Nermina Rucic O'Neill, who I think you heard earlier. She is our manager of generation stations and facilities engineering.
Good afternoon, commissioners, and happy International Women's Day to you as well. As indicated in previous slide, Jason mentioned that we are creating a roadmap to 100% carbon-free power generation while ensuring reliability of power supply. In order to stay resilient and reliable, we have to have solutions of carbon-free dispatchable capacity and long-duration energy storage, as also indicated in the LA100 study. And hydrogen was recommended as one of those potential solutions. Thus, in May 2021, we started developing Request for Information, also known as RFI, with the intent to survey the industry and obtain information on types of solutions and industry capabilities available as they relate to the pathway to green hydrogen generation. The objective was for LADWP to better understand potential opportunities for green hydrogen that could support DWP's decarbonization goals. With this RFI, LADWP wanted to get information on technical solutions as they relate to production, transportation, storage, use, meaning electricity generation, but also safety and environmental stewardship. RFI was issued on August 5th of 2021 and closed on November 5th, 2021. Our team received submittals from 26 different companies and 36 distinguished submittals, all addressing different areas of this RFI. Now, across power system divisions, multiple discipline SMEs, about 16 of them, are reviewing. Actually, they completed evaluation of these submittals at this time, and our team is developing a report that will be presented to our executive management and will be available to you as well. It is important to add also that United States Department of Energy has developed an extensive hydrogen program and is investing substantially in hydrogen research, development, and projects. About the same time we prepared our RFI, DOE has issued their RFI seeking information. By November of 2021, bipartisan infrastructure bill was passed, which authorized Department of Energy to invest up to $9.5 billion in creating hydrogen hubs across the United States, different regions. And DOE plans to solicit proposals for minimum 4 of those hubs, hydrogen hubs. And it's seriously considering potential Western region hub that could benefit the entire state of California, and especially LADWP and ports of LA, Long Beach, LAWA, and many other industries around us. So thus, we believe that a report we prepare with the information we gain through this RFI will be very valuable to LADWP in considering and drafting LADWP's and City of LA's proposal to LA Green Hydrogen Hub.
I know, thank you, that's great. I also understand that there are a number of efforts underway to think through how to best collaborate and participate in this opportunity. Is LADWP working with other partners or stakeholders, or is this something that we're doing just on our own?
Yes, LADWP is working closely with the Port of LA, Port of Long Beach, and other stakeholders in understanding how to prepare best proposal to the Department of Energy. Department of Energy right now issued request for information how they're going to solicit the proposal for the hubs. And there was about the 40 questions that relates to various aspects, technical, but also workforce, environment, different region, job opportunities for those regions.
So we're working with the Port of LA?
LADWP is, yes, having conversation with the Port of LA and trying to understand how hydrogen can also benefit in utilization of green hydrogen for port itself, transportation and so forth.
Okay.
More to come.
I would simply also just point out that there are a number of folks that will be looking at how to pursue this, including some of the leading academic institutions, et cetera. So if we are looking at competing for, a federal grant of this magnitude, that we might want to expand our lens a little beyond, just government and look at other ways that we might constitute our efforts so that we have the highest possible opportunity for success, but more to discuss.
Exactly.
Yes, more to come on that.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Nermina. For the next two, it's not really the director. We have a director that retired from Power System Safety and Training, so we will use our senior AGM to go back a few versions of his career to present the next 2 slides.
Is that why you paced to the back? Okay, very good.
I'm trying to move it along.
And a suit, no less. I'm just so impressed.
Thank you. So this next slide is essentially our hiring goals moving forward, and this is for the craft trainees that we have in the system. And unlike some of the other positions that we hire to fill our APR, this isn't driven by our need; it's driven by how many we can train. So it's restricted by how many trainees we can actually get into our system to properly train to get out. So our electric distribution mechanic training program, that's our line series program. We hire 40 a year. That program can handle 140 people in it at any given time. So we're restricted. It's a 3.5-year program. Our electrical mechanic trainee program, our new core agreement, we're looking at 300 people over the next 5 years. So we're hiring 60 a year into that program. And that is a 4-year program. Station operator, we do 2 classes a year right now, between 15 and 20, based on the need and where our vacancies are in our APR. Electric meter setter, we're slowly ramping that one up to look forward to when we get into our AMI. We want to increase those positions a little bit each year. So when we start doing our AMI, we have it increased in that position. Right. Currently, we only have about 18 meter setters, but we're looking at ramping that up quite a bit over the next few years. The underground distribution construction mechanic program, that is a brand new program. We just started that as a 5.30 program. We're also looking at ramping that up for some of our additional metro projects and some of our larger projects that we need to increase the amount of crews on our underground conduits. Some of the other groups, one of the that's directly affected by our HYPE is our HYPE program by COVID. We haven't fired that program back up, but we have started hiring based on the positions that we gained. We've hired 40 this year. We have another 20 in progress right now. We're looking forward to getting that program back on board very soon. The other one is also our general construction positions. We've hired 50 new out of the 153 that Ann referred to. We've hired 50 so far. We're ramping that one up also in our general construction based on our core agreement with Local 18. The next slide, this is our graduation and our hired over the last 5 years. And if you look at these 2 numbers for each of them, they don't quite correlate with each other. The 241 is how many we have in the program right now, essentially how many kids in the school. The 162 is how many have graduated over the last 5 years. So like I said, this is a 3.5-year program. So there's an offset of about 3.5 years hiring to graduating. Electrical mechanic training, 278 hired, 231 have graduated so far. 136 in the operator program, 60 projected graduated. And that's because we've ramped down that program based on the APR, and now it is ramping back up for what we're looking at in the future. That'll correlate, the increase in our electrical mechanic training directly correlates with our operator training. And then the underground conduit mechanic, the 36 hired, the 9 graduated. That's our new program that we're moving forward with. So, any questions on the craft training?
Great, Brian, thank you. So next we'll bring up Louis Ting. He's the Director of Power Planning, Engineering, and Technical Services.
Good afternoon again. So for the Power System Reliability Program, specifically for this fiscal year, we have put a very high focus on wildfire mitigation and hardening. And as you can see, the budgeted amounts of pole, cross-arm, and transformer are listed there. And just for transparency is that of last fiscal year, we exceeded the wildfire hardening goals for the poles and tracking well for the cross-arm transformers. In addition to those efforts, substation automation, which gives a lot of situation awareness and control for our ECC grid operators, that is also tracking well, and we exceeded again last year with the budget on that. And as far as additional effort, we have distribution automation that we're piloting that will give additional wildfire hardening potentials during those areas. Some of the accomplishment achievements for last fiscal year and also for the year before, and we have met or exceeded all of the distribution infrastructure replacement for the fiscal year 2021, and then a target for cable replacements, maintenance, whole lid restraints, installation, poles, and cross-arm replacement for this current fiscal year. One note is that overall of our budget for the last 5 years for PSRP, which increased from $750 million, that includes both capital and O&M, to all the way to this current year, over $1 billion for this initiative. We are essentially within the budget about 2.6%. So this is a very high accomplishment of this and demonstration of our staff, power system staff, and all the other joint and water services that provides a service for us that really did a great achievement to meet those budget requirements. And based on our reliability performance and based on the independent study that we benchmarking that we do every year, we are ranked about in the first quartile for our outage frequency, which is system average interruption frequency index, which is the industry index, and also for system outage duration index, However, we are in the second quartile for the customer average outage restoration time. And I will go a little bit more detail in the next slide. As far as the impacts.
Could you back up real quick?
I'm sorry?
The last line on that slide, persistent underinvestment reduced PSRP KPIs, is that a statement or is that a warning? Meaning, are you telling us that we are persistently underinvesting, or are you warning us as to what will happen if we do?
So essentially, what we're saying that our consistent investment since the beginning of the program, since 2007, and was revamped back in 2014, that our consistent ramping up of the investment from $700 million to over $1 billion has helped us to continue to increase our reliability and improve our reliability. And the underinvestment is not, it's just a statement saying that we want to continue.
So it's a warning.
Yeah, we had underinvested for a number of years, so we don't want to go back
past. Not in the last, since 2007 when we started the power reliability program.
Okay.
So that is not, in fact, you know, I would, if I had to redo this again, I would reward that.
A flag to be aware of.
Okay, no, good. We can move forward.
Okay, so
admonition.
I just read all the slides.
In the next slide, I know it's very data heavy, so I'm going to go very simply. Just if you can just focus on, I know the meeting's been running long. If you can focus on the column that says LADWP, the red essentially were in the fourth quartile, the green were in the first quartile as mentioned earlier, and the yellow was in the second quartile. And the reason the red were in the red quartile, in the fourth quartile for Katie and the EX means excluding major events. And I'll explain that real quickly. So customer average interruption duration. So how many minutes does it take for us to restore our customers? So those are actual minutes right there. So it took us average 165 minutes approximately, excluding major events. So let me quickly explain major events. Essentially, is a standard that is defined by the industry that anything over a certain standard deviation that becomes a major event. So, for example, back in September 5th and 6th, 2020, we had a heat storm. And during those days, we had outages that sustained a restoration time over 508 minutes on average, which is over 2.6 times the normal time that it takes us for us to restore our customers, or in other words, 8.4 hours. It was very long and very arduous. And throughout the whole entire power system reliability program, we have learned that every year there's certain things that goes wrong. For example, 3 years ago, it was all underground splices. And
Except
1 year it's all transformers.
But I just want to be clear, what you're showing us where we are in the fourth quartile, which I assume means the bottom, yep. And, the yellow, which is second, which is, means we could be as low as 50%. Those are excluding the major events, right?
Those are excluding
so
or
that's
including.
Just the regular, normal operations of our system. And the reason I'm asking you that is right. Because, we do get, and I know that Marty is currently aware of a group of customers that are making the point on a fairly regular basis that they are having reliability problems and are very frustrated both with the frequency and the time of duration. So this is outside of, significant events where people might be a little more patient or a little more understanding, or at least we have a better case to make. So I am curious about and deeply concerned about that particular metric.
And just for your information, the excluding major events is in the fourth quartile, but if we include that major event I just described, and with the heat storm, we're in the second quartile. So I'm not saying that's the difference between exactly. I understand where you're coming from.
If I could, and so.
No, I'm sorry, I'm confused. Excluding the heat storm should make it, if we're taking that out as an outlier, should make it more green.
Yes.
Yes. So if you look at the minutes, it's actually less.
Horrific, actually.
Yeah. If you look at
so that bit of information didn't help, right?
Right. So that's why I want to just kind of focus on those two items because they're very confusing. Because excluding major events is 165 minutes, but in the industry, that's in the fourth quartile compared to everybody else. But if you look at including major events, which all the industry has major events, they
So like
face it.
hurricanes, things like that, right?
It's like hurricane, wildfires, and other windstorm events that we don't experience, that they experience. If you look at the quartile, we're actually, including major events, we actually have longer duration of restoration, but we're in the third quartile, or second quartile, excuse me. So essentially, again, this presentation is only an introduction to our safety. We do have an annual power system reliability program presentation that's in the queue to present it to the board in the near future. So we will go into more in depth on our metrics that we track.
Okay, but I just want to be super clear because, yeah, we've got to get through the budget and we're not going to spend a lot of time on this issue. But
Exactly.
you are hearing that we have real concern about this particular metric. And as it relates to major events, I mean, again, I am more than willing to ask our customers to be more patient and to be more tolerant, et cetera. But when we're looking at major events excluded and our performance metrics are as indicated, that just seems really unsatisfactory. So we'll look forward to your deeper dive on this, and we'll make sure that it gets scheduled sooner rather than later. And I see Dr. Pickle's hand up. Thank you for being so gracious and working that protocol. And look at, you're setting an example. So Dr. Pickle first, and then Commissioner NEEMAN Brady.
I would make these comments in the reliability presentation, but I think since it's budget, it impacts the budget, I think it's good to say it now. SAIDI and SAFE is kind of the rule of thumb, indicates the system's well built, if you're high there. If you're slipping on CAIDI, that means your field staff is understaffed. So take that as we go forward on the budget.
Thank you, Dr. Pickle. Commissioner NEEMAN Brady.
You stole the words out of my mouth, Fred. I was going to say the exact same thing, which to me makes us conclude, in looking at this slide, that we clearly are understaffed in some manner. And I mean, these are lagging indicators. So we also, our system is not built, or the questions the reliability of our system and the investment we need to make there. So
So we will have this conversation back in a very focused way because we do have to align our resources to our operations and pay attention to the metrics that we need to follow in order to, to provide our customers with the service levels that they deserve. So thank you for this.
Thank you.
Thank you, Louis. And next up, as you all know, Dave Seward is retiring, and so replacing him is Ms. Wendy Yancey as the Director of Power New Business and Electrification.
Good afternoon, and happy International Women's Day, by the way. So investments in the EV program have steadily increased. In fiscal year 16-17, the actual spend was only $2 million. The actual spend for fiscal year 2021 was $58.8 million, and we estimate to close out this year at $56.7 million. In 2021, the goals were updated, and the new targets are 45,000 commercial EV charging stations installed in LA by 2025, 120,000 by 2030, which is in addition to the 1,000 DCFC, that's the DC fast chargers, by 2025, and 3,000 by 2030. Anecdotally, a council member just mentioned that there were 2,700 gas pumps in Los Angeles, and we plan to at least equal or surpass that number in DC fast chargers. The residential rebate program, as you know, has been increased to $1,000 and can include eligible costs to refund for the purchase as well as the installation of qualified residential level 2 chargers. Recall previously, that was just $500 for the charger only. $500 has been added to the residential charger and $1,000 to the used EV rebate programs, and that's for our EV customers participating in LADWP's Lifeline or Easy Save low-income programs. In 2020, The Power System revised the commercial rebate program to add a $1,000 rebate adder for commercial level 2 chargers installed in disadvantaged communities. The commercial rebate program also aims to promote the electrification of medium and heavy duty vehicles, including trucks and buses, and has over $4.8 million in project rebate applications aimed at electrifying this sector. As of 2022, residential customers now have the option to apply for rebates online. There are now over 16,000 commercial electric vehicle charging stations in the city, as well as 384 DC fast chargers. There are currently over 78,000 plug-in electric vehicles registered in Los Angeles, which is the highest of any city in the country. So given all those updated adopted goals, and based on expected commercial rebate program payments, planned rebate programs currently in place, clean fuel rewards, contributions, planned LADWP projects, and proposed funding payments to city agencies, and our outreach program that we're going to enhance, we expect to expend $74.5 million in the next fiscal year.
I see a hand up. Commissioner NEEMAN Brady.
Thank you. I just wanted to give you notice that I have to pop off, but I'll try to return after my call concludes. So
Okay, thank you for that. Are there any questions on this slide? I know that we will be having a further presentation around EV infrastructure in the upcoming weeks and months, and look forward to that. And certainly look forward to the alignment of our efforts and resources to our actual goals around this particular program. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Wendy. So on the next slide, we have John Levy. He is our Assistant Director of Generation Station and Facilities Engineering.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. I'd like to talk about some of the projects we've been doing the last couple of years and this upcoming year on improving the reliability, safety, and efficiency at our generating stations. This is just a small collection of many of the projects we do, but these are some of the ones that we like to highlight. As far as the Castaic Generating Station, we recently replaced Station Transformer 3, and we're currently in the process of installing a new Station Transformer 2, which will be completed in April 2004, or April 2022, so this coming month. Transformer 2, the replacement was for additional redundancy, or I'm sorry, that was for additional reliability because it's coming to the end of the life, and Transformer 3 was for additional redundancy for future generation. One of the major issues that just occurred is we had
just a quick second. I'm looking at my screen, and Commissioner NEEMAN Brady has left. I don't see Commissioner BARAD or Commissioner LEHRER. I just want to check to make sure that I still have a quorum.
Commissioner LEHRER, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, thank you.
Continuing, so we recently had a generator failure on Castaic Power Plant Unit 5. We did make a repair to put the unit back in service, but it turns out that it is likely a design flaw that is fleet-wide for all 6 units at Castaic. We currently have a root cause analysis being undertaken by General Electric, and we should have the results in April. But it's looking like we're likely going to have to replace all 6 generator stators at the Castaic Power Plant, which will be budgeted in the future years here. And we also recently purchased a Haynes Unit 11 through 16 generator step-up transformer to keep as a spare for additional redundancy in the station. Upcoming outages and overhauls, Haynes Generating Stations Unit 8 through 10, we'll be finishing that up in fiscal year 22-23. That is a major overhaul that happens every 6 to 8 years, depending on service hours. So once this is complete, we should be good with Haynes Unit 8 through 10, probably through 2030, hopefully. Owens Valley Power Plants and the LA Aqueduct units, we do overhauls in 22-23 based on what we can get to, depending on resources, internal resources. One of the major projects the Generating Station and Facilities Engineering is working on is the Valley Generating Station Units 1 through 4 demo project. We're expecting contractor mobilization in October of 2022 and a completion date of April 2025. We're looking at going out to bid with the RFP next week, I think is currently scheduled. So you guys will be seeing that, more news on that probably soon. Nermina touched a little bit on the green hydrogen RFI and strategy. GSFE is supporting the City of LA's clean hydrogen hub efforts. We're kind of the technical advisors, and likely the RFI report will be helping to inform some of our decisions and strategy going forward with that particular application. And we're also further developing strategies for clean, firm capacity in the LA Basin. We're taking a lot of look at different novel generation technologies. We're researching a lot of items like that, including green hydrogen, long duration energy storage, and other types of maybe renewable fuels.
All right, any questions for John?
No, thank you.
All right, last but not least for Power System, we have Tom Patzloff. He's our Director of Fleet Services.
Well, good afternoon. Hopefully this microphone can pick me up. Just to kind of start out, for Fleet Services, last year when I spoke to you commissioners, I mentioned that within Fleet, we made some major changes within our procurement group. We implemented price and time contracts. We started looking at options through Sourcewell, looking at ways to faster procure equipment. So in the last year, we've been doing that. We've been getting things in a little bit quicker. Unfortunately, this pandemic has really hurt the supply and logistics side of equipment. Anybody that's driven by a dealership, there's nothing there. So we're dealing with a little bit of that, but we are slowly attempting to flip this fleet. Going forward, as Ann mentioned in her presentation, we've asked for an increase for the fleet acquisition side. We need to flip this fleet. We need to flip this fleet, and at the same time, we need to look at alternative fuel options. In particular, we need to electrify the fleet as soon as we can. This is a big deal for us. We've been looking at this for a number of years as the manufacturers continue to produce more and more electric options. We're looking at those, we're buying them, we're beta testing them, and eventually, probably by the next 10 years, you're going to see about 50% of our fleet, medium and heavy duty, in fully electric or potentially fuel cell options. So just to give commissioners a little heads up, we recently ordered 100 F-150 pickup trucks. So they're a four-wheel drive pickup truck, short bed, that has, one of the options has a 200-mile range, the other has a 300-mile. So what we're going to be doing when these 300-mile range pickups come in, we're going to be placing them in places where we do real work. They're not going to just come out of JFB, and they're not going to come locally.
You want to rephrase that.
That's where our electric vehicles are. It's primarily in this building. I mean, we have sedans.
No, places where we do real work. That part.
Okay. Well, didn't you want to rewrite something? Can I retract that? Working on the infrastructure. Oh boy, it's been a bad day for Tom.
And I was going to say, sir, that I think that the Fleet Services Division is an area that we pay scant attention to, and it merits a great deal more. I look forward to and can promise you that we will put a specific item on the agenda to have a specific presentation from Fleet so that we can look at these issues in much greater detail. I am well aware of the tremendous work that's done by the men and women that are assigned to your division and want to say thank you. And you're 100% correct. We've got to move forward with electrification of our fleet. But in the overall, I did want to acknowledge the employees that have been doing very good work both before and throughout the pandemic in Fleet Services, notwithstanding the little shade. Just a joke. It's no, but just with respect to the delivery of those new Ford F-150s, let us know. I'd like to be on hand to get a picture when we accept them. It's an exciting development. It's great.
Yeah, and it's, once they come in, we are going to be looking to deploy, drive to Bishop and have a place to charge.
Yeah, I'm curious about the implications of our own incorporation of electric vehicles into our fleets on our EV infrastructure, and looking forward to understanding that better as well.
Yeah, and it's definitely a challenge for us. What it's going to do is it gives us a little precursor into how we're going to deal with our customers. So we're doing it first. We're kind of in front of the curve on that. The other thing I want to mention, if we want to go to the next slide, the helicopters. I talked about them last year. They are finally in supply chain into purchasing, I think. Brian moved them. And hopefully we will be back to this board May or possibly the June meeting for approval. So this is part of the enhancement for our HEC program for the safety portion. They're a little bit behind on where we would like them to be, but it's important to get the specification right. So is there any other questions for me?
No, thank you. This has been great.
All right, thank you.
Thanks, Tom.
Okay. The next we'll move to the water system. So the water system for program year 22-23, we have a preliminary budget of $1.2 billion, and this is higher than the approved budget for last fiscal year, and it is higher than what they've re-estimated for the current year. The major spending for the water system is their contracts, which is increasing for the next program year, followed by labor and then purchase water. And we took a little bit of a deeper dive into what are those contracts that the department will be seeking approval for. And they're really for infrastructure improvements. So we have $89.1 million in contracts, which is a 24% increase from the prior year approval. And you can see that they're for reservoir improvement, stormwater capture, water quality, groundwater O&M, and then water quality improvement project for reservoirs. They also have some planned increases in materials and supplies and other directs as far as distribution, reservoir O&M, and their groundwater. And with that, I will, also purchase water. Here's a slide that talks about our purchase water trend. For the current, the budget for 22-23, we have in there $275 million. This is a projection. It'll get trued up as we move through the year, but the blue line shows the actuals that we've incurred. The red line shows the approved budget over the year, so you can see how far off we are. And then the green, we've increased the estimated preliminary amount for the current year. We're into $314 million, and water system is re-estimated $275 for the next year. And I'll turn it over to Evelyn to talk about some of the water system goals and accomplishments.
Thank you, Anne. Good afternoon, Commissioners. To highlight some of the investments we're looking to make in fiscal year 2022-23 for the water system, we will install 200 hydration stations citywide, utilizing collaborative partnerships with city partners, and this will help us meet the goal set by Mayor Garcetti for the Green New Deal. We will continue construction on North Hayway Dam number 2, which is a new earth-filled embankment dam north of the existing dam. This is located just south of Lone Pine in the Owens Valley, and this will improve the seismic reliability of the North Hayway Reservoir. We will continue construction of the San Fernando Groundwater Basin Remediation projects, and I will be highlighting some of these projects shortly. This is significant milestone as they're part of the water system's first progressive design build contract that we're undertaking. So we'll have a little bit of an update for that. We will execute the Owens Lake Asset Management Program to improve long-term reliability, water efficiency, and operability of our dust mitigation infrastructure, Owens Lake, as well as a focus on safety. We'll also continue the implementation of a strategic mainline replacement program. I'll get into those details in a minute. But the highlight here in the focus is that this will target the leakiest pipes in the water distribution system, where we want to focus our attention and resources. And our target is to have a resulting leak rate that is 40% lower than the national average. And this has been a target for our water distribution division. And we want to incorporate earthquake resilient material as well. And I'll talk about that briefly. Go to the next slide. I want to highlight four areas of our water infrastructure: main lines, trunk lines, water meters, and pump stations. The difference between main lines and trunk lines is a diameter of 24 inches for main lines, and higher is considered trunk lines within our system. For the mainline program, our goal for this fiscal year, for the program year 22-23, is to install 210,000 linear feet of mainline, and this goal is feasible if we're able to hire the staff necessary to meet this goal. By contrast, our fiscal year 2021-22 current year goal of 195,000 linear feet, right now we're anticipating completing installation of a little over 150,000 feet of mainline by the end of the current fiscal year. And we are roughly at a 90,600 linear feet as of January. We've had some challenges, and that's part of the reason that the goal is inching towards closer to our goal, the number of feet installed. We still have 4 months left in fiscal year, so we're hopeful that we're going to be able to make some good progress. Part of the challenges essentially are twofold. Continuing impacts of the pandemic on workforce, and as we heard from Tom Patzoff, we had equipment impacts to shortages in heavy equipment that is needed for pipe installation. So we've seen some impacts along those lines as well. For the trunk line program, you see on the middle photo there, Coronado trunk line project as an example of our trunk line program. Our goal for the trunk line program in the program year 22-23 is to install 11,515 linear feet. And the Coronado trunk line is one of the projects that we have ongoing to date. This is roughly 87% complete. It's 30-inch diameter welded steel pipe connecting First Street trunk line to the Sunset trunk line within our existing system, and we're using the open trench method for this installation with our in-house crews. So for earthquake resilient pipe, the mayor had set a goal for us to complete 14 miles of earthquake resilient pipe installation from June 2016 through the end of December 2020. We achieved this goal ahead of schedule. We installed 21.5 miles of earthquake resilient pipe, and Water Distribution Division set a new goal to install 10 miles of earthquake resilient pipes from July 2021 through June of 2024, and has installed 2.7 miles through the end of December of last year. So we're making good progress toward that. With regard to water meters, we plan to replace 34,000 water meters to work toward a 20-year replacement cycle. And the last photo you see on this slide is representing our pump performance test at Buena Vista Pump Station. We're working to meet our annual goal to replace or rehabilitate 12 pumps or motors per year at our critical facilities. Go and to highlight some examples on water quality at our Tom. Is there a question?
Go ahead.
Okay. To highlight some examples of our water quality efforts, at the Tom LaBonge Headworks Water Complex, we completed construction of Phase 2, which is with a Headworks Reservoir West. Phase 3 will begin construction of a flow control station on the Headworks Reservoir site to regulate the flow coming from the new river supply conduit upper reach into those two reservoirs. The next three photos that you see on this slide are representative of projects in our groundwater remediation program. The Tujunga Centralized Treatment Facility will address groundwater contamination affecting the Tujunga well field and restore beneficial use in the San Fernando groundwater basin. The North Hollywood West wellhead treatment, which is the lower right photo, will provide remediation treatment to 3 groundwater wells in the North Hollywood West well field for removal of 1,4-dioxane using an advanced oxidation process. And this construction project started in August of 2017. We're currently about 89% complete, so we're making excellent progress there. The last photo is the North Hollywood Centralized Treatment Project, and this groundwater treatment facility will treat over 38 cubic feet per second of groundwater for contamination from the Rinaldi-Toluca well field. Talk about water supply projects and highlight some of those key water supply efforts for you. The Tujunga Spreading Grounds Enhancement Project increased stormwater capture capacity at the Tujunga Spreading Grounds. The increase was 100% from 8,000 to 16,000 acre feet of capacity. This project began in August 2016 and was completed last November 2021. For the Stormwater Capture Parks program, there was a key memorandum of understanding that this board approved just earlier this morning. Thank you very much for that. It's a milestone for us to make progress on two of the 9 stormwater capture parks projects in this program. This is a partnership between us and the LA Department of Public Works, Recreation and Parks. We're implementing this to build up to 30,000 acre feet of stormwater capture capacity at 9 parks in the eastern San Fernando Valley, and we plan to start construction this year. We always talk about conservation. It's a never-ending discussion. It's a lifestyle here in LA. The gallons per capita per day, as I mentioned a little earlier, is a measure of our city's progress. We are expanding our incentive programs. As I mentioned, the amounts are a little earlier today as well. Right now, we're roughly 6 gallons per capita per day higher than the 106 target that we had for fiscal year 21-22. But those targets, of course, always assume average weather conditions. And as we discussed earlier, we've had very different drier conditions now. And we're continuing to strive towards our 2025 target of 103 gallons per capita per day and a 2035 target of 100 gallons per capita per day. Talking about recycled water, this is another critical part of our local water supplies. And as Marty echoes all the time, all water is recycled. We know this. So we want to make sure that we continue making progress in that program as well. The Los Angeles Groundwater Replenishment Project will recharge the San Fernando groundwater basin with recycled water produced by the Donald C. Tillman plant. We are currently working with LA Sanitation and evaluating next steps to move into the design phase. So this is a significant amount of progress as well. If we could go to the next slide to talk about some achievements in the current year. We did achieve full water quality regulatory compliance earlier this year, and we're going to have some significant updates for you regarding this major milestone for the water system. As of February of this year, we've performed over 45,000 water quality tests. By the end of this year, we actually do perform more tests on multiple tests on every sample of water that we collect throughout the distribution system. By the end of the fiscal year, we're projected to have performed over 100,000 tests for water quality throughout the distribution system. Another achievement for us, we've taken extraordinary operational drought actions so that we can preserve our water supplies on the State Water Project. That includes modification of operations so that we can maximize demand on Colorado River Aqueduct, MWD connections, and not as much emphasis on State Water Project where we can help that. We also completed the study on the useful life of the LA Reservoir shade balls. As you know, we have millions of shade balls out there on our reservoir. And we've extended the replacement cycle from 10 to 15 years with DDW approval, Division of Drinking Water. In December of 2021, we completed our urban water management plan for 2020, and we found it to be consistent with all of the statutory requirements. And I did want to highlight one additional achievement. The LA Reservoir Ultraviolet Treatment Facility, commissioning activities for this significant project. Ultraviolet Treatment Facility is a 650 million gallon per day treatment plant to meet water quality regulations. Commission activities were completed on January 31st. And we are in the process right now of planning a celebration event to mark this significant milestone. That concludes my update. I'm happy to answer any questions.
No question.
No question. Okay, we'll go on to joint organization. So the first one is corporate services. And in corporate services, this is where we have all of our planned healthcare payments, our human resources staff for overseeing those healthcare plans, contracts. In this one, we have $26.3 million for this preliminary budget, so that if we need to move people out of JFB to do the restack, we'll have resources to do that, as well as materials and supplies. So their total budget is $636 million. And we have increased the healthcare payment estimate for this fiscal year because in prior years we had money set aside under my organization for retiree medical. That plan is now fully funded. So this money is set aside for additional payments as necessary. So that's for the increase. And this number may change a little bit because we'll expect additional information between now and the final budget. But I would like to invite Mike Wooding to come up and talk a little bit about the facility changes as part of this capital budget for 22-23.
Hi, good afternoon, Commissioners. Thank you, Ann. So real quickly, I'm just going to update some of the capital projects that we have that we're eyeing for 22-23 and beyond. So obviously, as the board is well aware, the JFB reconsolidation project is at the top of the list. And we're continuing to make progress with that. We've met with Bureau of Engineering this week and have another meeting later this week in order to expedite that project and move it forward. So we're looking forward to getting some additional information to you in the near future. Also on the good news front, the JFB reflecting pool, as we know has been dry for quite some time, is actually slated to begin construction in about a week and a half to 2 weeks. So with the contractors on board, and we should be looking forward to getting that started right around the 1st of April. Smaller facilities projects and things along those lines include 6060 Sepulveda, North Fig facility, some new facilities improvements. There's some money earmarked for those, but these are relatively small numbers. Replacement of elevators at multiple facilities. A lot of the elevators that we have in the system are at end of life, or actually some original to the building, so we've earmarked some money for improvements in those regards. Also looking forward to the future. This is a few years down the road. We've got some money set aside to begin exploring and rebuilding the West LA Yard, Hoover Street, and Boylston facilities, as well as building parking structures at Main Street, Temple, and the Artesian Street facilities. So that completes my brief notes on this topic. Any questions?
No, but happy to hear about progress with BOE.
Yes, looking forward to touching base on that quickly.
Thank you.
Okay. Another group under the Joint Service Organization is External and Regulatory Affairs. And so for the program year 22-23, we have a budget of $485 million. We have increased it for the 173 positions. They have a 12% increase in contracts and a 4% increase in labor planning. One of the areas we like to focus on when we talk about this area is our customer benefits program. So for program year 22-23, we have $170 million set aside for energy efficiency. As Wendy Yancey had mentioned, $75 million for electric transportation, $4 million for emission grant reduction program, and then power system incentive program of $23 million and water conservation program of $26 million. And I would like to invite David Jaco to talk a little bit about energy efficiency.
Thank you, Ann. Thank you, Commissioners. I just want to give a kind of a high-level snapshot of the COVID impacts here. We've had tremendous success since 2010 in terms of our 15% energy reduction versus the baseline. But we've had a difficult couple of years. As you can see here, the results on the left, we spent quite a bit less in fiscal year 2021 than we did in 19-20. We got less energy savings, but those impacts weren't as bad, so that's good. Now we're in the process of re-ramping things up, getting programs back off the ground. The commercial direct install program is back up and running and serving the LAUSD facility, so we're really happy about that. We're on track to repeat this success through 2030. We say the 15% reduction because that's what the state law, SB 350, mandates, but we're moving towards more of a resource stack approach. So we'll still track the percentage, but we're aligning with LA 100 and the various strategies within that to achieve the decarbonization of the grid and how energy efficiency adds up into those resource stacks. We're working very closely with the power system and the LA 100 group on that. Just working to get the CAMR program up and running, the Comprehensive Affordable Multifamily Retrofits. We are hiring for that. We're hiring almost 27 positions within my group for that and some other programs. Really excited about that. June 1st is our estimated launch for CAMR. Hopefully sooner, but to manage stakeholder expectations, we're looking at June 1st. Like I said, the goal this year is not looking great, but we're not terribly far behind, and we certainly have room to catch up over the next few years. Just wanted to highlight one thing, one innovation that came out of the last few years with the COVID challenge is our ability to do remote inspections. So since we couldn't go to customer sites, we set up, we procured some software, did some training, did some process improvements to where we could actually walk the customer through the facility and show us the equipment that had been installed, so we could verify it and still get those rebates out the door. So that's been a success that we will continue even as things move more back to normal. And that concludes my brief update.
I would also hope that, or not hope, but suggest that as you are aligning your perspective and your resource stack with LA 100, that you're also mindful of LA 100 strategies. I'm always a little concerned when there is a gap between focus on energy efficiency and energy savings, et cetera, without a similar and equal focus on equity as it relates to that.
Right. And we have a very full suite of equity-related programs that are part of the larger portfolio. So we'll be able to do those two stacks side by side. One is the KWH and the capacity it adds to the power system, and specifically for uptake of electrification in the near term, but also where we're showing how we're supporting or making sure that we align with and better support the equity strategies as well.
I will look forward to that. Thank you.
I just have one question, sure. David, on building electrification, does that fall in which program?
So we're adding building electrification measures across a number of the energy efficiency programs. There's going to be electrification measures in CAMR, the Comprehensive Affordable Multifamily Retrofit Program, from day one. We're moving to have those measures also incorporated in the Custom Performance Program and the new construction program that we call Zero by Design.
And that's where like new developments are fitted into our energy efficiency? That's good,
so that
thank you.
So we can try to get the buildings to be all electric from day one as opposed to having to go back and retrofit them.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. The next organization as part of External and Regulatory Affairs is Customer Experience. And as Dr. Pickle mentioned, Meter Services and Field Operations is now part of this group as well. So Stella Tiemann is here to present their goals for the next year and some significant accomplishments.
So good afternoon, Commissioners, and happy International Women's Day as well. So I would like to start to highlight a few of the achievements that we've completed this fiscal year. So our priority is to build trust with our customers and to demonstrate that we are here for them, to help them. So some of our achievements are we've improved the effectiveness and ease of access to low-income assistance programs. So in the fall, we launched and streamlined the Easy Save program, which eliminated the need for proof of income and allowed a self-certification process. So with that, in the first half of the year that we've launched that, we've added 18,000 customers to the program. And as Marty mentioned earlier, it's a record high of enrollment of 130,000 customers. We've also implemented other programs to help assist our customers. Another achievement is the implementation of payment assistance programs. Also, as Marty mentioned, we applied nearly $285 million to 300,000 customers through state funding, and we are promoting our extended payment arrangements to all customer classes. We've also adapted customer service programs to meet customer needs. So in the first year, we have been able to process 22,000 customer rebate applications for our customers. We've launched online applications for different programs. And in our small business sector, we've also been awarded the 2021 Business Customer Champion by Escalent. Next slide, please. So our goals for this year, and continuing with building trust and to demonstrate that we are here for the community, is investing in our communities. So we're going to continue to expand our low-income support and actively engage with our customers. So instead of waiting for our customers to call us, we want to actively engage with all segments of our customers and show what programs we have to help them. We also intend to open new customer service centers that have ample parking and also have consultation areas within them for those who need more than just to start service or drop off a payment. We're going to strengthen our customer service and accessibility. So we're going to launch and manage a comprehensive arrears management program to demonstrate to our customers of all the different options they have if they're having difficulty making their payments. We also intend to replace the current LADWP.com and replace our customer contact platform to make it easier both for our employees to see 360-degree view of the customer and be able to even answer questions that they haven't even yet asked. We want to continue with continuous innovation amid uncertainty as well. So we'll be developing our processes and our policies with the changes such as like distributed automation. We want to make sure that the technology is out there to help our customers. So next slide, please. So as Ann and Dr. Pickle mentioned, field operations returned to customer service in February. So now the meter to cash process is now fully contained within customer service division. Two achievements to highlight for field operations has to do with technology and how it assists in manual processes. So we did an upgrade to our current field system, and that is how the field receives their field activities for turn on and turn off requests. And another solution that shows innovation is it implemented a system called Survey 123. And this gives us a framework and a workflow to make sure we ensure the safety of our field crews and track any incidents in the field. Next slide, please. So in the current fiscal year, the field will continue to leverage technology. So what I want to highlight on this is that we are going to use software to optimize meter reading routes and understand how AMI can improve the quality of our work and also help us be more responsive to our customers. So that concludes our portion. Thank you, Ann.
Thank you. Our next area is information technology services. And so for the program year 22-23, we have budgeted $301 million. Increases in labor with the additional ads, materials and supplies, which is software and contracts. And I have Mark Northrup to talk about the goals for 22-23.
Hello, Commissioners.
I just want to be, just quickly, I want to interrupt here. We have 3 commissioners present at this meeting. Commissioner BARAD has left the meeting. Commissioner NEEMAN Brady has left the meeting. We lose our quorum at 2 o'clock when Commissioner LEHRER has indicated that she is leaving the meeting. So we have your item, Ann, that has not been taken up, and we have a closed session that does not likely look like it is going to be taken up at all. Understand the department doesn't have advance notice of commission schedules, but I just wanted to determine whether we are under any specific time constraints with respect to the action items related to your budget item.
Excuse me, Board President, Commissioner NEEMAN Brady can rejoin.
Commissioner Neiman Brady can join. All right, then it looks like we may be okay, so we can move forward.
And just to answer your question, we were hoping to get approval for the budgets today so we could transmit it. We have a charter requirement that they have to be done in March for the preliminary budget.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate it.
We can pick up the pace a little bit.
I wasn't complaining about the pace of the presentations. I just wanted to deal with logistical issues related to any action that the board might need to take so that people weren't caught off guard. And this is the tiniest slide.
Don't read every word.
You know, I try.
And I'll take Marty's advice. We'll keep it quick. As you know, commissioners, I provide a quarterly update to you. I just provided one to the OPA and to Madam President just on Friday of last week about our major projects. So I'm not going to go into the details of what's happened over the years, but to talk about this briefly about what we're looking at going forward. The goal of this particular budget is to focus on water power joint and especially on a customer focus for all our programs going forward. And that breaks it down into a couple different areas. Under applications, we have some major programs and projects going on. One of them being ERP, which is going to be a transformational approach to the way we do procurement, HR, and finance going forward for our projects. CIS upgrades as well coming forward. Microsoft 365, which is a workplace collaboration tool. It's underway right now. We're kicking this off. We are going to have the implementation of that stuff happening this year. Internet, a new internet and intranet site. Looking at
Are those things going to happen this year?
I'm sorry?
Are those things going to happen in the next fiscal year?
Some will happen. They will be kicked off. Some will actually have implementation this year in the next fiscal year. Others will be, you know, it'll be a progressional type thing. Additionally, we're working with other groups like on IVRs, AMI, the DA program. All these are major programs that we're trying to invest in and ready the infrastructure and the network necessary for the bandwidth and the information that will be flowing over all our systems. Cybersecurity, as we all know, we're well aware of what's happening out there in the world. Things we need to keep ahead of the bad guys. Let's just keep that right. So we're working on the resiliency of the department and the preparation for some things, major events that are coming up. For example, the Olympics, which are only 6 years away, and we need to be prepping starting now. Additionally, we're looking at improving our matrix organization. I've been talking with the other senior AGMs about water and power and how we can improve that and improve the services to their systems that we support in collaboration. So we're working very closely on providing a strategy which will be aligned to the business going forward for IT to help them in on those things. And then just lastly, I want to talk about the infrastructure and network group. As I mentioned, there's some improvements that are necessary there that we're making some investments in, and those will be seen over the next couple of years. And part of it is that we needed additional resources, and that, as Marty mentioned, we were a large portion of the joint increase, roughly about 90 individuals were approved. We are working on our hiring. We've made great strides this last year, and especially in the last 6 months. I give credit to my teams for that. And I want to just give a shout out to all the women on my team in the IT group. Woo-hoo. They are the majority of my senior staff, and there are many in the lower staff that just support us every single day, and they do a great job. So with that, any questions or anything?
Just quickly, customer service made reference to a new website that they are anticipating. Is that something that's actually going to happen?
We are in collaboration with them. We are working that. We are working with third parties to look at the solution for implementing that. I've actually been engaged with Joe Romalo and George Rafael, not most recently George Rafael, but most recently Joe Romalo. We have third parties coming in to advise us on what we've already done, and then look at how we're going to engage a third party, what we call a system integrator, to implement that new site.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Mark. Our next joint group is Office of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion. And as you remember, last year was the first year we started that budget, so we estimated 31.6 million, and so for the preliminary budget for this year, we are at 31.7 million. Regular labor is a little bit down because they have a vacancy factor applied to it, but they did have positions added. And I have here Ms. Kathy Chavez Morris from DEI who will talk about some of their goals for 22-23.
Thank you, Anne. Good afternoon, Board President and Commissioners. My name is Kathy Chavez Morris. I am a Utility Services Manager with the Office of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion. I just want to first start by thanking Board President and Commissioners for your statements today in celebration of Women's History Month and International Women's Day. We're excited to join the Women's Council in creating a more diverse, equitable, and inclusive department. As we advance DEI efforts through workforce, workplace, and marketplace initiatives, we are building out our staff to support these initiatives. Just a reminder that our workforce is comprised of human resources, supplier diversity, community engagement, and equity metrics. Much of the workforce on the HR side of the house is occupied already in positions, but the newer sections have vacancies that are being filled as we speak. This first slide that Anne showed illustrated in large part our intention to staff up so that we have enough employees to deliver on the recommendations of the Racial Equity Action Plan. That plan will be released to the workforce within the next day via department-wide bulletin. As you know, the recommendations in the Racial Equity Action Plan call for a comprehensive culture change and specific actions that will impact department operations across all sectors of LADWP. As it should be, diversity, equity, and inclusion will be a part of everyday operations, and our staff will be here to support systems, divisions, and employees to view their work through a DEI lens. This slide also reflected our intention to contract out work that will assist us in meeting these goals. The Racial Equity Action Plan development was led by a minority-owned local business, and we believe that there will be additional work needed from outside contractors to help us implement DEI initiatives that have been successful in both private and public industry. We also have budget set aside for sponsorship and advertising because our work in diversity, equity, and inclusion does not end at the double doors downstairs. It extends into communities we serve. As an anchor institution, we are obligated to improve the social, economic, and environmental health of the communities that we serve through our investment in capital projects and programs we provide. These goals on the screen are essential to strategic initiatives within the Office of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion. For instance, updating our LADWP strategic plan to incorporate diversity, equity, and inclusion into core values and build brand awareness around reimagining core values, developing guiding principles that reflect leadership standards, behaviors, and competencies that should be demonstrated throughout our workforce. We also intend to engage in the creation of the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Steering Committee and Task Force. We also want to create the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Institute through a combination of vendor-provided training and in-house workshops to specifically address LADWP culture. We intend to transform online training delivered via WebEx to an online training community in Blackboard. We want to modernize the current interview selection package submission process from manual paper-centric. We want to make that more modern. We want to also lead and participate in various strategic efforts such as Operation Next, SLTRP, LA100, and LA100 equity strategies to ensure the advancement of matters related to hiring and identifying job classifications. We want to also establish policies and programs that lead to more diverse and equitable hiring and promotional opportunities, such as mentorship programs, recruitment partnerships, interview preparation assistance, and diverse interview panels. That completes my comments on Office of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion's budget plans, and I'm happy to answer any of your questions. Okay.
I don't have any questions right now.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. The next group in join is our Corporate Strategy and Communications group under Joe Romalo. And for the program year, we have a preliminary budget of $16.1 million. These are reflective of more current estimates that we plan to spend. And I will turn it over to Joe to talk about.
I'm sorry, could I just go back a little bit?
Sure.
Back to DE&I?
Back to?
Yes. I do have a couple of questions. So if we could go back to your goals.
Yeah.
Only because I'm trying to understand, and back to the budget, how these, this is fiscal year 22-23, and I am really beginning to, or wanting to shift from plans and hiring to actually understanding your office from an impact perspective. And as I look at these goals, a lot of them seem to be directed toward our internal operations and HR functions, so hiring, et cetera, training, which is a significant part of, and you certainly have that staff in place. As I am looking at the department through an equity lens in particular, one of the things that is kind of is weighing on my mind pretty significantly goes to, for instance, procurement. And it's a very big area that we have not focused a lot on, in large part waiting for, it's just hard to do everything. And so when I look at these goals, I don't really see much directed there. And when I think about procurement, in the same way that there are other metrics, I think about very specific goals and very specific outcomes that can be measured over time. And I'm sort of looking for how DEI shows up in that space. And as it relates to sort of, again, the kind of work with professional labor, community-based, expand employment opportunities, the thing that we have talked about repeatedly, both, with folks in the department and public and beyond, is and labor, is the gap between, programs and efforts and actual employment, and how you make opportunity real, how you create pipelines that actually are meaningful. And so I'm sort of trying to, and even here at the department, we've talked about, and all of our senior leadership is talking about the real need to staff up, challenges with respect to personnel in many areas that get in the way of that. And so I'm sort of trying to understand, as I look at this, the kinds of things I'm looking for are very specific. They're things like how we will transform our relationship to and our processes with respect to hiring that allow us to overcome barriers that not only get in the way of DE&I candidates, but that are getting in the way of candidates. So I am curious about where this is headed, from the perspective of what we are going to achieve, like, at the end of fiscal year 2023, because we are coming up to, the end of 21-22. We've been at this now 2 years. I'm starting to get very focused on what we're going to see.
Can I interrupt?
Go, absolutely, Marty.
If I can. So, yeah, there's not really shown here. I will tell you, in the strategic plan and the business plan that we just did, there are specific goals in those areas. And I know that we're working on a presentation for the board on that. But we did focus specifically on some of the areas, particularly working in community, procurement models and goals, and have some actual targets that we're shooting for, with deadlines and goals for that. So it should be reflected here. Unfortunately, I apologize, it's not, but we do have that identified in our strategic planning document that we just worked on with the senior staff.
Okay. Yeah, and if I may, I just want to also just comment on that absolutely improving diversity of supplier, or diversity suppliers is absolutely an initiative that we want to improve upon. And part of our group under Karen is working on that with her staff. And it's so appropriate that you asked this question, because we actually have staff who are attending the Women in Construction Week through the local organization. There is a conference that's happening, and so we've got staff there attending this week. We also do intend to engage with our community members more. And I think that there's such a great opportunity for us to be able to kind of meet both needs on both the hiring side and engaging the community through really strategic employment initiatives, where we're not only are we hiring, but we're also trying to target specific populations such as, veterans, individuals who are disabled, maybe foster youth who are aging out of the system, right? Former folks who've been engaged with the justice system previously by hiring from those populations, or at least providing opportunities, greater options and greater opportunities for those populations to have employment with the department, we do have a substantial impact on the community.
Well, I think just so we're just on that front as well, because again, if we're going to make the impact that we need to make, it's not all going to be at the department. And some of it is going to start well before we're actually at the point of hiring. And so I'm also very interested in how we engage in community in a way that creates interest in the jobs that are in our sector. We certainly want them to, we want to make sure that we've got a workforce pipeline that we can look to, but we also know that we're going to be hiring contractors and there are other employers out there, and that what we don't have is a broad enough pool of folks who are even aware of opportunities in our sector. And so, the other piece and I just will say this and we can move on. The other thing that I'm very interested in is understanding how DEI integrates with the rest of the department, because we don't want to set up another silo where we have community over here engagement, and then we have community engagement in sustainability, we have community engagement that's happening in our communications and strategy space. And you mentioned the LA 100 equity strategy, which is being led by Power. And I don't see a lot of DE&I sort of engagement in that. I mean, wasn't part of the leadership team there. So I'm just curious about how all of this is coming together in a way, and I think that's something that's going to need to be negotiated between the various assistant general managers in terms of how this shows up and what the role is that D&I plays in all of that. But with respect to, in particular, efforts to make sure that people even know, that young people and that people who, who have no idea that their career paths in this particular industry sector, making sure that we are able to focus on that end and that we are supporting the efforts that power and water systems already have underway, because that's the thing. I know that there are efforts underway, so assisting in that space, one. And on the procurement side, we spend a boatload of money. And by the time we see these, we are not making a dent in procurement, not a dent. And looking at the processes that are leading to the outcomes that come across our dais is something that needs to be urgently addressed. And that, in my mind, is got to be a key component of what's happening in your area with respect to supplier diversity.
Yes, we agree. And I definitely agree with you that the greater presence we have in the community, the more that our brand image is having a culture of care I didn't
mention that.
Yeah.
I'm not talking about presence, because again, this is like equity.
Yes.
Sometimes posturing and being seen is substituted for the kind of work that gets to a result.
Mm-hmm.
And so being seen, outreach and presence is not the metric.
Indeed.
The metric is what is the purpose for that outreach, what is the purpose for being there, and what is the result that we're driving for. Because if I can't drive outreach to a metric, that outreach doesn't really mean anything to me.
Great, we'll take note of that. Thank you very much.
Okay.
We'll go back to corporate strategy and communication and some of the goals for 22-23.
Yes, good afternoon, Commissioners. I just wanted to note on the financial slide as well, you'll notice a significant increase in the labor expenditure, and that's due to the board support and general manager's support of our additional hiring. We did hire over 8 additional staff last year, with more on the way, filling our APR. So thank you very much for that. I think others cheated on their slides because we were total limited to 3 goals and 3 accomplishments.
Some people don't listen to you.
That's point taken, right?
So it was very hard to limit, but really significantly in terms of accomplishments, I think you're very familiar with the new water website and newsletter that we issue together in partnership with one of our consultants, really working across the water system to launch that. We also have the Eastern Sierra website that we've been actively managing to improve our communications in that area and locally. Also the board website, which was a significant undertaking and a redo for the board. And as Mark said, we're working with IT and customer service to really get progress made, significant progress in the next year on the corporate website. It's a complex task, but we know it's critical. And we've demonstrated, I hope, that what we can do with our websites in a creative way to improve our outreach communications with our customers. We've also significantly, you'll see on that financial slide again, significantly increased our advertising spend. While we did not hit our total, we more than doubled our advertising in the last year from the prior fiscal year, representing also a good partnership together with an advertising planning and placement firm that has been very helpful in our strategy. We have been drinking from a fire hose, frankly, on the advertising side, on the programs across the department. And then in addition to that, they're not highlighted here, but the significant support for various efforts, whether it's LA 100 or equity strategies that continue, the urban water management planning process that we undertake with water system, and those types of related efforts. In terms of next year, really continuing that hiring of new staff to support the requests from our corporate communications, our community affairs, our media relations, our advertising, and our creative services, who really drive so much of the beautiful work that you see regularly here at the board meeting. We want to maximize the use of these microsites and really a significant improved focus on internal communications within the department. You know, that was highlighted as a part of the culture study. It's something we take to heart. This department and my division have not had dedicated staff for internal comms, but we've cobbled it together with some very talented women who have done a phenomenal job, both on COVID communications, as well as what we want to do is take that as a model, use it across the department for things like text notification. Mark and I have had those conversations about how to move forward with that platform to keep our workforce better informed of critical information, but also the important information that comes from JFB and that we want to make sure it reaches all of the department, and that allows for two-way communication as well. With that, I'd be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Yeah, can we go back up? So your budget's going down?
I would say it's more aligned with reality. I've been trying very hard to make sure we don't have things on there that are contracts that maybe are old. I mean, there's a lot of budget cleanup here.
Gotcha.
So I do expect that we'll be asking for more, but I wanted to make sure we get it a little tighter before we do that.
Yeah, I think in Joe's case, if you look at his actual 2 years ago, was almost about 60% of what he's doing now. But this is realistic based on where he's grown to already. I think it's not as much as approved last year, but higher than what he's actually spending.
Yeah, I only asked because, and that's great, and thank you for that, and I appreciate your being very detailed. Brand management is a significant part of what you do in corporate communications and strategy. And I think the department's ability to speak and to promote and position itself, its accomplishments, to shape policy, to participate in the world commensurate with its size and impact is really, really important. Your division has worked really hard and has consistently stepped up its game, and both its internal and external public face and positioning of the department, I think, has been laudable. I continue to question whether we are properly invested in this particular area, and know, frankly, how hard the folks are working. I look forward to continuing to see this particular area grow. And And, when you think about the work that this department is doing, both as it relates to climate change and as it relates to water resiliency, it's some of the most significant work in the country. And it is really the kind of thing we've got to, our customers have to begin to see us as more than just, that sleepy organization on the Hill that gets them cheap water and cheap power, or at least that's what, they've got to see us and understand both what we're doing for them in a big picture way, and also how we are, actually doing work that is significant across, and Marty, we're investing the time, we're doing the work. I mean, our people are everywhere all the time doing the work and providing the kind of leadership that is unparalleled. I want to see more of that reflected in how we are communicating and how we are showing up in media across the country and in Los Angeles, so that folks know what their dollars are paying for and what the impact is of those dollars. And a lot of that work we sort of do, it almost becomes, it's like, oh, by the way, or an aside, as opposed to a critical part of what we're doing. I know we had a team in DC just last week. I've seen Nancy provide remarks to congressional committees. I mean, DWP plays in a very, very big stage. And so, it's why I'm so supportive always pressing, this particular element of work. And I know that in your case, it's just capacity. The more resources you have, the more internal capacity you have, the more that you can get done. So thank you, but more.
Thank you. The next area for joint is corporate health and safety. And so their budget for the program year is $19.2 million. This is an increase for labor contracts overall. And Mark Hendon is here to talk about some of the accomplishments of getting through COVID and what they have planned for 22-23.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Thank you very much for this opportunity to highlight some of our accomplishments and our goals. I'd like to start out with our COVID-19 response efforts. The Office of Safety chairs the department's COVID task force, where they oversee administration of the department's vaccination efforts and testing clinics. So since inception, we've administered and overseen the administration of over 8,500 vaccination of department employees, provided over 11,000 testing, including antigen and PCR. We procured an additional 15,000 more to prepare for the evolving, ongoing COVID response efforts. We oversee the resource office. They have fielded since inception over 31,000 calls to date to administer contact tracing efforts, leave policy, and vaccination tracking. I'd like to thank our corporate communication partners. They've been instrumental in helping us with our communication efforts. We've administered over 300 bulletins, 52 newsletters. They've helped us with text via NICOLE. We've had videos that we've produced, and it's been very instrumental in the communication efforts to help communicate to the department the evolving nature of the pandemic. We've met biweekly with our labor partners, including IBW and MEA. I'd also like to highlight our air quality and lab sampling efforts. After the completion of repair efforts to the compressor systems at Valley Generating Station last year, our industrial hygiene team was instrumental in monitoring the emissions around the perimeter of the Valley Generating Station. They partnered with our Environmental Affairs Office in the development of this program and have been conducting daily assessments at the station since last year to get us through completion of the automated monitoring system. This is just one of the key air quality programs that they conduct air quality studies throughout the year, every day. We administer a laboratory contract that oversees the analysis of hazardous material testing and other air quality studies that are conducted throughout the department. Regarding safety training, we provide the full suite of OSHA and regulatory compliance training, including wildfire protection, heat illness, COVID awareness, asbestos, respiratory protection, first aid, and CPR training. This training, we have developed and implemented a safety training tracking system in partnership with IT. This has helped us to track training that we provide to each individual employee, as well as the number of classes that we provide each year. Regarding inspections and OSHA compliance, we serve as liaison to Cal OSHA inspection efforts, and we also have an inspection program. Our inspection program, we have safety engineers and industrial hygienists that go out to our facilities to ensure that our practices and facility conditions are ready for regulatory compliance investigations. Last year, we oversaw 7 investigations that were conducted by OSHA. We responded to 4 citations, and we're responding to 5 appeals from previous OSHA investigations. And lastly, on that note, I would just say that we administer the department's registration with the state of California for our asbestos program. It allows our asbestos construction crews to perform the work that they do. This is in essence a license, a business within a business to be able to do that work in the department. Next slide, please. So going forward, our goals going forward. We've identified operations associated with the highest rate of injuries in the department. We have our top 5 here. And our goal going forward is to institute a training and evaluation program to target the operations associated with the injuries in these operations. We've noted that in large part, there's a significant number of injuries that are soft tissue, ergonomic related, and cumulative in nature. We do have a robust ergonomic assessment program. Every year we perform hundreds of evaluations. Going forward, our goal is to keep that effort up and expand upon it. The main focus of these assessments have been office, but our goal is to bolster our field response efforts and develop field ergonomic assessments. Regarding strategic planning, last year we underwent a consolidation with occupational health services and workers' compensation. So we want to expand upon this relationship and the synergies between our respective groups. We have a software platform that is subject to upgrades in the next year with particular respect to the workers' compensation administration of claims. With an eye towards identifying those opportunities to facilitate the safe return of employees that are that are out on days away, restrictions, and transfers, and to help to facilitate those opportunities to be able to return our employees back to work timely and in a safe manner. And lastly, I'd like to note our efforts regarding a safety management system. This is a 2-pronged approach. Last year, we launched a contractor safety management program, and the cornerstone of that program is a third-party review of the safety records of contractors that are bidding for opportunities with the department. We worked with legal to be able to incorporate terms and conditions into our agreements, as well as pre-bid a document, and we put together a pre-bid orientation to help facilitate our contractors with their opportunities with the department with a safe record of performance. The second prong to that is acquiring a safety management system platform and assemble an oversight committee to oversee implementation of this platform. This platform will help the department to operationalize the collection of leading indicators. Right now, when we report on injury rates, those are lagging indicators, and we want to shift the focus from lagging to leading And these safety platforms are really focused on capturing those metrics to measure the performance of our field and office personnel. And that's it. I thank you very much for the opportunity, and I am here to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you. I note that this is page 57 of a 74-page report. It is 2:05, and Commissioner Reyes and I have been in the meeting since we started without a break. So we are going to, I think, take a break at this juncture.
Cynthia, before you do so, I completely appreciate that you might not have had a break. I will really not be able to return at 2:30, and I understand Mia has something as well. I don't know, Mia can speak for herself, but if that's the case, then we won't have a quorum.
Mm-hmm.
And I just want to make sure you're aware of that.
No, I am aware, so I'm not really clear what to do about it. We've kind of powered through, so I understand that we can take up these items at our next board meeting if that's necessary and adjourn at this point. But at the rate we're going, we are not going to we seem to be running up against time constraints. It's difficult to if we don't have 5 commissioners that can be available for the whole meeting, it's hard to carry the whole thing. So
the last 2 items are our organization, which is mostly paying off the debt, and the retiree medical and the general manager's office. Would it be acceptable?
And that's just summary slides, right?
The summary slides. Would it be acceptable to leave the presentations in everybody's package if there was questions? But it seems like there's not a lot of questions. We could conclude with this and bring back high-level items for the final budget.
We could do that. So then if we're going to conclude the presentation at this juncture, and I thank everyone for their for the work associated with this. I think as we move forward, we'll bring the budget over 2 meetings as opposed to 1, or one and it's the only item. That takes us back to the 2 items that have not been taken up. They were both were related to the budget. I think it's L3 and L4, if I'm correct. And are there any comments on L3 and L4? It does not look like that. Is there a motion with I'm sorry, I thought Dr. Pickle might have a comment. Dr. Pickle?
Our concern is that the increase in the labor budget is not enough under the circumstances. We're in a period of high inflation. This preliminary budget should go ahead, but I think we need to have a discussion about what labor needs to be added, and that is quantity as well as, we're likely to have to pay more given the tight labor market and inflation.
I think that is an important observation, and clearly there will be some pencil sharpening between the time this budget goes over and the time that it comes back for final review. With that, is there a motion with respect to items L3 and L4?
I move approval for items L3 and L4.
Is there a second?
Second.
Would you please call the roll?
President McCLAIN-HILL?
Aye.
Vice President Reyes?
Aye.
Commissioner LEHRER?
Aye.
Commissioner NEEMAN Brady?
Aye.
4 ayes.
Terrific. Then that item passes. I do know that we have a closed session agenda, but again, unless there is something of tremendous urgency, I would just as soon move it to another meeting.
Commissioner, what I would ask is with respect to item M5, for which a board letter was provided, if we could vote on that item unless anybody has any questions, that would be helpful.
And excuse me, Board President, we still need filed items in the minutes, please, K1 and the J.
Okay, well, with filed items, are there any questions associated with filed items?
No.
Okay, terrific. Then with respect to the minutes, is there a board motion to approve the minutes from February 18th?
So moved.
February.
Seconded.
Would you please call the roll?
President McCLAIN-HILL.
Aye.
Vice President Reyes.
Aye.
Commissioner LEHRER.
Aye.
Commissioner NEEMAN Brady.
Aye.
4 ayes.
Okay, that's great. Then we are now moving to council's request with respect to M5. The question is there any discussion or question on the board letter associated with M5? If not, we can take that item up.
Forgive me, I don't seem to have it. I'm not sure why. I don't seem to have it.
Okay, then we will,
I can send it.
we'll close the meeting at this. I think we will take that up in the context of our next board meeting. Thank you. Do we need a motion to adjourn?
You can.
Then we are adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.